Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live in the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Are you prepared for a 9 p.m. puck drop?
Man, I was just saying, I don't know. I'm going to be struggling to make it through this one.
So I am not a coffee guy. I am a diet soda guy if I want a little caffeine kick. I've not had any today, but I probably will have to have some here at some point in order to be able to stay up this late. For some reason, I'm exhausted. Maybe it was all the yelling and screaming we did yesterday. So Barry Trotz will join us at 5 o'clock today as the Predators try to stave off elimination at Vancouver tonight. So I want to start on this. You know, I think the old saying is, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong here, those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
Something like that, yeah.
That's the old saying. You all know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. You know that if you don't learn from mistakes, you're just going to do the same thing over, and over again. And so yesterday, listening to all the excuse making and red flag ignoring that the true blue Titan Kool-Aid drinkers were calling into this show about, texting into this show about, tweeting into this show about, really got me thinking about the path the Titans have decided to take. The Titans have decided this administration, you want to call it the Carthon administration, you can. You want to call it the Chad Brinker administration. He's the president after all. But this crew, not going to single out one guy because it's a collaboration and we don't know who's really in charge. But it feels to me like they're doing a lot of the things that got John Robinson fired, right? And no true blue Titan Kool-Aid drinking fan wants to admit it. Now look, John Robinson took risks. Most of the time, it didn't work out. It didn't work out for Corey Davis. And it didn't work out for Caleb Farley. And it didn't work out for Julio Jones. But it did work out on Jeffrey Simmons. So it did work out once, and it worked out in a big way. But more times than not, you take risks, you're going to pay the price. Bill Parcells has the old saying, you draft for exception, and pretty soon you've got a team full of exceptions. And I look at what this group's doing. And again, no true blue Kool-Aid drinking Titan fan will ever admit this or wants to admit it or even wants to acknowledge the existence of this reality. But can I ask you, who's playing right tackle for the Titans? Ian, do you know who's playing right tackle for the Titans this year?
I guess not exactly.
If the season started today, who do you think would be playing right tackle for the Titans?
If it started today, PT? Nicholas Petit-Frere?
Who started at right tackle when John Robinson got fired? You see what I'm saying? The mistakes that John Robinson made, John Robinson was a solid general manager at the beginning of his tenure. It was very good. And then he got caught up in the risks, right? You know, he didn't bust immediately on Davis. He hit on Simmons. And from there on, everything was an exception. We just ignore the red flags. Christian Fulton missed an entire year of college football because he couldn't put the Mary Jane down. Didn't matter to the Titans. Draft him. The Titans, for some reason, couldn't find the red flags on Isaiah Wilson. Doesn't matter. Draft him. Red flags on Clowney. Red flags on Julio. Red flags on Caleb Farley. And when all those moves were made, the same true blue Titan Kool-Aid drinkers were in J-Rob we trust. They didn't want to admit it then. They don't want to admit it now. But look at this offseason for the Titans. Red flags on Calvin Ridley. Red flags on L'Jarius Sneed. Red flags on Tavondre Sweat. It's the same. And I'm not saying that these guys are for sure going to fail, but don't we just look at the chapter of John Robinson and say, hey, man, the more risks you take, the more trying to outsmart the system by trading away A.J. Brown, which, by the way, is a move that the Titans, and I know people don't want to hear this, it is a move that the Titans to this day agree with, that they made. They do not regret the A.J. Brown trade. But letting go a really, really, really good player was a move that hurt this franchise. Rand Carthon and company had no problem letting Derrick Henry walk out the door. So all I ever hear about is just the constant complaining of how bad John Robinson was. Last year when the team was no good because Aaron Brewer was at center and Andre Dillard, again, red flags, Andre Dillard was at left tackle. It was all John Robinson's fault. John Robinson messed up our cap. John Robinson traded away the pick. John Robinson missed in the draft. John Robinson didn't draft a guard with the 11th overall pick. John Robinson didn't take the risk of, let's take a right tackle and move him to left tackle. But those are the risks that this group has decided to take. And I was talking to a coach this weekend, a former NFL head coach, and I was talking about the process, right? Nobody likes to hear that, especially when things aren't going well, that, hey, we've got a process and we're sticking to the process. So it's not something that gets talked about a lot. But if your process is good, 100% of the time, you are likely to be successful 70% of the time, 75% of the time. You're not going to be successful 100% of the time. But if your process is correct, if you stick to your core beliefs, and again, don't draft for exception, don't just conveniently overlook red flags. If you don't do those things and the process is correct, you'll be right 70, 75% of the time. Let's take a look at Floyd Reese. He was very process-based. I have said, not a racist, not a sexist. He's an injurist. If you're injured, he doesn't like you. So he wouldn't have drafted Jeffrey Simmons, but he also wouldn't have drafted Corey Davis or Caleb Farley. His drafts included Steve McNair and Eddie George and Javon Curse and Keith Bullock. And yes, there was Henry Ford in the first round of the 1994 draft. Henry Ford was fine, but he wasn't great. Then there was Andre Woolfolk in 2003. Andre Woolfolk was terrible. But guess what? Throughout that entire process, he hit on Albert Haynesworth. He hit on Kenny Holmes. To an extent, he hit on Kevin Dyson before he got hurt. So the process was right. Doesn't mean you're going to get 100% results all the time. But when the process is flawed and you start investing in dented cars, you're going to pay the price for it when they're not available. And the number one ability in football is availability. So I'm not saying that the red flags on Calvin Ridley, what happened to him in 2021 in Atlanta, and the gambling suspension in 2022. I'm not saying that means that he's going to come here and be a problem, because I don't know. But it's a red flag. And I'm not going to say that L'Jarius needs knees, which, again, nobody else in the league wanted to touch with a 10-foot pole. And you guaranteed $55 million to. I'm not going to say that those knees are going to give out, that he's not going to play 17 games and he's not going to be a lockdown corner, because he might be. But nobody else is willing to take that risk. Between the two guys, you've guaranteed $100 million. Both of them come with major red flags. And then there's T'Vondre Sweat. And when it comes to T'Vondre Sweat, there are major red flags. There are maturity question marks. There is a weight issue. And there is the fact that the guy, regardless of whether or not he got hit in an accident or he hit somebody else, was involved in a DWI weeks before the draft. But the Titans flew down there and they met with his family and they sat down and they, And just like I'm sure John Robinson sat down with the doctors and they told him that Caleb Farley's back would hold up. I remember Mike Sando, and I'm waiting for Mike Sando's new piece in The Athletic where he talks to those unnamed league executives that sit there and say, man, that was a good pick, or man, that was a terrible pick. But I remember when he came out with the draft unfiltered, what the unnamed executive said about the Titans 2021 draft. And they said that corner out of Virginia Tech, his medicals were horrible. But the Titans told us Farley's going to be fine. Caleb Farley not only has been injured his entire time he's been a Titan, he also stinks. But they overlooked the red flag because they just couldn't not. And to me, I think that's a certain level of arrogance. Oh, no, I know. And that's what doomed John Robinson. John Robinson's best pick, I think we can all agree, was Derrick Henry. And if you read the story Joe wrote in The Athletic before Derrick Henry's last game with the Titans, it becomes abundantly clear that it was Blake Bedingfield, the director of college scouting, that was the one pushing Derrick Henry as the Titans' fourth pick of that draft and third pick of that second round. John Robinson listened. They drafted Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry went on to be the best player the Titans have ever had. But then once it came time to the success and the team was winning a little, and now it was all going with the gut and overlooking the red flags. And while I think John Robinson probably deserved another year, that's a different discussion that I'm not having right now. Guy won 61% of his games. The reality is it was not trending in a pretty direction. And we can all agree on that. Because he had missed. And I said before the 2021 draft, I said you can't bust in 2 drafts in a row. And then he took Caleb Farley. Well, here's this Titans group. And between the guard that they took in the top 11 last year, the running back with no ACL, the fact that they decided, you know what, let's wait until the offseason to see if we can figure out wide receiver. And now the red flags between Ridley and Snead and Sweat and the idea that they can just flip a right tackle over to left tackle. It's a lot of risk involved. And I've seen it on social media, I believe our coaching staff. If the Titans say that they can get T'Vondre Sweat right, then they can get T'Vondre Sweat right. I saw somebody say that, Jeffrey Simmons, he's going to be the one that keeps T'Vondre Sweat in line. I'm sorry? Is Jeffrey Simmons a defensive end, defensive tackle, or a babysitter? Because I know he can play defensive line. I didn't know that they paid him to be a babysitter. But again, that's what happens when you want something to be true. You conveniently ignore the questions that come of those actions. And again, I'm not saying everything has to play it safe. Fortune favors the bold. But at the same time, you can't wing it on every pick. And it feels like to a certain extent, that's what this group is doing. In spite of the fact that it's not one guy locking himself in his office and saying, I'll make all the picks, or the fact that they've got the analytics like the AI cancer curing model that Chad Brinker brought from business school with him. Still seems like a lot of risk. You took a risk nobody else would take on L'Jarius Sneed. You invested $50 million in Calvin Ridley, who went AWOL 3 seasons ago, who was suspended 2 seasons ago. That's a big risk. And you drafted a defensive tackle who might be an absolute stud of a football player, but we don't know if he's going to be able to keep himself under 400 pounds. So good luck. But again, those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And it feels like this group's doing a lot of the same things that you guys got mad at the last group for. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. And trust me, nobody wants to say it. I don't want to say it. But it is reality. So that's what we're going to say. Coming up next, Titan fans are mad at the draft gurus that are mad about, this guy, he was a reach here, and this guy was a reach there. And there is one thing. There is one element of this that is intellectually dishonest. And I want to get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Tune into 94.9 The Fan today. Vandy Baseball takes on Tennessee Tech. Pregame at 5:45. First pitch is at 6. Vandy Baseball brought to you by Smoky Mountain Tops. Your countertop experts. Visit SmokyMountainTops.com.
You look at T'Vondre Sweat. I like the kid. I'd like them a lot better, more than anybody did. We had debated that. I thought he was a guy who was productive. I thought he was more disruptive than anybody gave him credit for. Byron Murphy II didn't outproduce him by much in terms of even sack production. He had 5. Sweat had with 2.5. Sweat was getting the job done. Why couldn't you run against Texas? It was because of that wall that was T'Vondre Sweat. He is huge. I understand the draft process didn't treat him tremendously well. But you go back to the tape, people say, well, he's built for 1980. He's another one of those guys. I talk about Tommy Eichenberg, built for the 80s. You know, we don't need to stay-at-home type defensive tackles anymore. Last time I checked, they still do run the football. And T'Vondre Sweat did give you some ability to get into the backfield. So when you look at it and you size it all up, I thought at the end of the day he'd be a third-round pick like Gilbert Brown, who was my comp to him when he came out of Kansas a while ago, right? Had a good career. T'Vondre Sweat was a little early for everybody, I think. For me, though, I like the player. I like what he can become if he stays focused on the attention to detail, stays focused on the job at hand. I think he can be a guy who can help this football team. J.C. Latham, can he be a left tackle? We don't know that. He believes he can. Alabama never moved him. I love him as a right tackle. Can he be a left tackle? Of their late-round picks, Jarvis Brownlee's okay. Down the field, he's got to locate the ball. Yep. That's what bothered me a little bit with him. I said it on when he was drafted. So some of these guys, they're okay. James Williams is a tweener. What is he? Is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? That's why I gave them a grade that I did, not as high as some of the other teams in the league this year, and the division even. But I think Sweat, to me, is really a key guy because I think overall field, their draft brought in some guys that can help them. And Latham, can he be a left tackle? I wasn't loving a lot of it. I thought it was a decent draft, not a really good one, but we'll see how it plays out.
Mel Kiper just crapping all over your draft. Mel's thing was you reached at 7, you reached at 38. And Titan fans do not want to hear that. In fact, I heard, somebody said yesterday, who cares where everybody else had these players ranked? The only thing that matters is where we had them ranked. And I think that's intellectually dishonest. You don't want to take the 114th best player with the 38th pick, which is what Daniel Jeremiah said T'Vondre Sweat was. Now, here's where I find it to be intellectually dishonest. Number one, if I had told you this time last week that the Titans were going to take a player with a third-round grade according to Mel Kiper, a fourth-round grade according to Dane Brugler, that they were going to take him with the 38th pick, you guys would have gone crazy. Would have gone crazy. The second thing that makes it intellectually dishonest is this. And that is, you can't laugh at the Falcons and the Broncos for reaching, or you can't say, what in the hell were they thinking by taking Bo Nix at 12 and then saying, well, everybody else that says that we reached, they don't get it. You cannot have it both ways. Because the argument for the Broncos taking Bo Nix at 12 is, well, we had him ranked on our board there. You see what I'm saying? And by the way, the person calling the shots for the Broncos, and I don't think he's the smartest guy in the world, but he's got a Super Bowl ring. Your people don't. So when you guys sit there and say that you don't care what everybody else thinks of your draft, because every single one of these draft analysts thinks that you kind of reached at 7 and thinks you absolutely reached at 38, it's dishonest. Because you're probably laughing about the Broncos. You're probably calling the Falcons stupid. And here's the other thing I've learned when it comes to reaching. And I'm sure the text line's going to be mad at me for this one. When you reach, this happens for every team. And it's much easier for me to talk about teams that aren't the Titans because, again, you guys are invested emotionally in the Titans. But when teams reach, and they take a guy that none of the draft gurus think belongs anywhere near where that pick was, every team always says, yeah, there's no way that guy would have lasted any further. I mean, there's no way, no how. It just never would have happened. Every time. Every time. Bill Belichick took Cole Strange with the 26th pick of the 2022 draft, traded with the Titans, in order to be able, I believe it was the Titans, in order to be able to take Cole Strange in the first round, a guard. And it was a guard at a UT chat that a lot of people thought was going to be available later on in the draft. And the great Bill Belichick took him in the first round. And Bill Belichick, because all the draft gurus said, wait a minute, hold up. Cole Strange, he's not a first round pick. Bill Belichick, when asked, could you have waited a little bit longer? Here's what he said when he was asked the day after he took Cole Strange in the first round.
Bill, did you have a belief that if you waited until your next pick, that Strange would be gone, or did you just have conviction on the player?
Yeah, he wouldn't have lasted much longer.
He wouldn't have lasted much longer. Meanwhile, the Rams were holding a press conference when Strange went off the board with that pick, and here was their reaction.
Definitely. A lot of times, if as an example, you really
just went.
Oh, my UT Chattanooga to the first round. Hey, where is
How about that? And we wasted our time watching him thinking he'd be at 104 maybe.
I hate to say this. They're not laughing with you, Bill. They're laughing at you. But Bill knew, right? Bill's like, oh, no, he wouldn't have been there if we had waited. Meanwhile, the Rams are like, we thought he was going to be in the 4th round, and they took him in the 1st round. And it's so easy. And Cole Strange has been an average guard over the first 2 years of his career. It was a miss. But it's so easy when it's not the Titans to look at it and say, Belichick, moron. It's so easy to do that. That's what you did with T'Vondre Sweat. And so, look, I actually like the player, and I like the fit that he has. I don't care about filling needs, because 5 years from now, nobody will ever remember what you needed. But I like the fit with Simmons. But you can't take the 114th best player with the 38th pick. And even if you want to take all the off-the-field stuff, the weight, the maturity, the DWI, whatever it may be, and the maturity and the DWI, by the way, are not exactly the same thing. There are maturity questions surrounding T'Vondre Sweat that do not have to do with the DWI. The DWI is just a part of it. But you can't take that at 38 because Daniel Jeremiah had him ranked at 48 before all the stuff came out. You know, his first initial big board in January had Sweat at 48. And again, you can't take the 48th best player at 38. You can't do it. That is, as the GM used to call it, the cardinal sin of drafting. You can't do it. And so, again, when it's your team, it's easy to say, well, our guys saw him on the board. They loved him. He's our fit. They said that he wouldn't have gotten far. They this, they that. It's easy to do that. Belichick did the same thing when he took an average guard in the 1st round. And the Rams laughed at him. Can we get that cut again of the Rams? Again, this is like the NFL makes every general manager and coach talk after the first night of the draft. So even though the Rams never have any first-round picks, they have to hold a press conference. And, again, their reaction in live time when Cole Strange went off the board.
Definitely. A lot of times, if as an example, you really
just went.
Oh, my UT Chattanooga to the 1st round. Hey, where is...
How about that? And we wasted our time watching him thinking he'd be at 104 maybe.
I mean, you can tell that Les Snead is trying, like when he's like, oh, my God, UT Chattanooga to the 1st round. He's trying his hardest to say, morons! Oh, my God, what are they doing? And so, again, like when – it's one thing if one guy says, oh, like, you know, I had him rated as a 3rd-round player. I had him rated as a 4th-round player. But in the case of T'Vondre Sweat, it's everybody. So we can't laugh at the other teams and then sit there and say when you do it that, oh, no, you're smarter than everybody else. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We will get to some of your phones on this. 615-737-1025. Now, there is something that Rand said that it might be true, but I doubt it. It's so convenient that it's hard for me to believe that it is actually true. We'll do that next, and then we're to your phones. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3. The Game. Tune in tonight through their classic hits. Today's the Sounds. Take on Norfolk Tide at First Horizon Park. Pre-game at 6:20. First pitch, 6:35. Sounds Baseball, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning.
made in the first 10, 12 picks of the second round. How much action were you getting? How much consideration did you give?
Tons of calls. We up until when we walked up here at 4 o'clock with JC, we had about 8, 9 calls, 8, 9 offers for the pick, and we were fielding the calls, listening. But one thing we talked about was, let's see how this board shakes out. We knew there was going to be an early run on receivers, and we knew that with the defensive tackles that were right there, it was only a matter of time of when that run happened, and you knew that there was going to be a run on the corners right there. And so the receiver run happened early, like we thought, and then as soon as I think it was Washington traded into the pick and took Johnny Newton, we knew that run was going to happen, and it's just the way the board took shape.
It's probably important to note, too, that it's just because there's phone calls doesn't mean that they're good deals. Doesn't mean that they fit for us. Some of these calls and some of these trades, you're dropping down a significant level of player when you start dropping deep into the second, and sometimes the reciprocal value isn't there because everyone thinks that they can try to pull one over and get a deal, and that's not how it works. So there's a cost of doing business, and when you want to come up that high, there's things that are required, and some teams meet it, some teams don't. But I think there was just a world of player that we weren't quite ready to dip out of.
There you go. That was the Titans after they took T'Vondre Sweat, which everybody who does not root for the Titans, and some people who do root for the Titans, think was probably a reach at 38. Again, I don't have a problem. You worked the same deal that Carolina worked, where they got the Rams second next year. You moved to 39, and you took T'Vondre Sweat. I mean, again, still probably a little bit of a reach, but at least you got the extra picks. Whereas here, it was like, nope, we have to take him right now, because if we don't take him right now, we're not getting him. Really? For a guy that, again, Dane Brugler gave a 4th-round grade to a guy who Mel Kiper gave a 3rd-round grade to a guy who Daniel Jeremiah didn't have ranked in the top 100, and that guy was going to go in the 30s. Really? So Rand Carthon went on across the street at 104.5 yesterday and said that he got a text from a GM, which I thought was wild. Said that he got a text from a GM who said that they were going to take T'Vondre Sweat with the next pick, and that they said, great pick. That they say, you got our guy. Oh, bull crap. I mean, look, I understand the idea of wanting to defend your picks, and as crazy as this sounds, this T'Vondre Sweat pick is the most San Francisco 49er thing I think that they've done since he became the GM, which is screw the board. We're going to take our guy because we think that this is the guy that we need. The problem is the 49ers do that at pick 99, right? You don't do that at pick 38. 38 is where the Derrick Henrys still exist. And so, I mean, I understand this is the guy we can put next to Simmons. But it's 38. And so he needs to be that level of player, and he's not. So Rand Carthon goes to the press conference, and you heard right there where they say, oh, we got all kinds of calls, but we had to have this player. And Brian Callahan says, all the moves we would have made, we would have gotten out of this kind of player. We would have dipped out of this player. We don't want to do. When I hear 3 days later, I had a GM text me and say, great pick, because we would have taken him. So it was absolutely the smart thing for us to take him, because if we didn't take him, then they would have taken him. The end. Don. I'm like, okay, I'm going to need to see that text message. Like, I'm going to need proof. Like, I'm going to need, come on now. That is too convenient to be true. Even on the draft show. Because I said, when the Titans were on the clock, I had a former NFL head coach text me, take the kid out of Georgia, he's going to the Hall of Fame. But if you listen to the draft show, when I got that text message, or I should say after I flipped my phone over after the Titans made their pick, because I didn't want anybody to tip any picks, I literally showed the text message to Derek and Chris. And so, again, at least there's like proof that exists, where this is just like, oh yeah, even though everybody's killing us because we took the 114th best player at 38, we actually did the right thing because this GM texted me. Now, I have no idea. Did the host follow up and ask and say, who was the GM? I mean, again, if you say something like that, I need proof. I'm sorry. That is too good to be true. And if you buy that stuff, and I'm sure most of you do, then more power to you. You guys probably live better existences than I do. But I have a really hard time buying that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. It'd probably be a good idea, Ian, for me to pull the call screener up here today as I have
might be
not
helpful.
done so. Kyle has been waiting patiently. Kyle, the reason I haven't gotten to you yet is because I forgot that I didn't pull up the call screener. Kyle, go ahead.
You can say I'm patient, but I don't know if I am. All right. Well, what's with you today, man? Bashing on our Titans. It's a good day out, and all I'm hearing is my team sucks. My team sucks, man. Come on.
What do you want to hear?
We're making some good moves. We got us a tackle. We need a tackle. We need a D tackle to help out Simmons, and we got us a linebacker. I mean, where are we going wrong?
Well, I mean, again, let's go over the red flags here, right? Like, these are real when it comes to Ridley and Steed's knees and Tavondre Sweat, and those are the same red flags that, again, you guys ignored when it came to John Robinson, and I think that that's what did John Robinson in. And if the Titans just keep ignoring red flags, I think the same thing's going to keep happening over and over and over again.
Every team goes through this. Like, every 28-year-old out there has a bad knee, has a bad neck. They got to work out. I mean, it's just par for the course, man. The NFL, it's tough. But
so then why was every team not interested in L'Jarius Sneed except for you?
I agree. There's a little risk there, but I've been arguing. I was on your side about that, but that was a month ago, man. Let's move on from that. We've got the draft and everything. The draft's going to fix a lot of stuff. I mean, we got the linebacker. We got James, who's going to be the next Keith Bullock.
Who's going to be the next Keith Bullock?
James Williams. He's the same size, everything, sideline to sideline.
So you think a 7th-round pick is going to be the next Keith Bullock, who was taken 30th overall in the draft?
I sure do, man.
Man. See, and this is the thing, and I appreciate your call, Kyle. It's hard for me to listen to that and really think that a 7th-round draft choice is going to be the next Keith Bullock. It's like, I don't want to get too worked up about Cedric Gray. I don't know. I've never watched North Carolina play, so I can't tell you if Cedric Gray is good or bad or whatever. All I know is I was outside because, to the caller's point, it was a beautiful day on Saturday. And I was listening to NFL radio, and when the Titans made that pick, everybody on the panel was like, wow, that's a good pick. And as a Titan fan, which I am, I got excited about that. But at the same time, I am very nervous about sitting here and just saying, you know what, that pick in the 4th round on day 3 is your green dot inside backer, and he can play 99% of the snaps on defense. I am very, very cautious about that because I don't think that's fair to put those kind of expectations on a day 3 draft choice. Again, we've talked about it. The day 3 draft choices who have started as rookies for the Titans are Tajay Sharp and I'm trying to think. Avery Williamson, as started as rookies. And now I'm being told a 7th-round safety that's converting to linebacker is Keith Bullock? Do you people not remember how good Keith Bullock was? And look, the country thinks the Titans stink. The country thinks Levis is a bum and he stinks and the Titans stink and they're always going to stink. And I don't think that. But at the end of the day, we have to admit that, hey, there are some serious risks that are being taken here. But what's going to happen is instead of you admitting it, what you're doing today, because it is a nice day outside, is put your hands over your ears, la, 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 doesn't happen. And then come September, when all of a sudden it's like, hold on, wait a minute, we drafted a guard with the 11th overall pick? Then you're going to be mad, and then you're going to turn around and go out of your way to sit there and yell and scream about how could they have been so stupid to have invested in Julio Jones. Because I lived it. Because I was the guy who said, wait a minute. A 31-year-old with a bad hamstring, you're going to pay $15 million. This is when I believe the cap is real. $15 million and a 2nd-round pick? And you guys were like, Jared, imagine this offense. Who's going to stop this offense? Henry, AJ, Julio, Ferkser, Josh Reynolds. Who's going to stop it? And I was the bad guy. But again, 31-year-old bad hamstring, is what it is. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. We'll get back to your phones because we haven't done a lot of that. Boy, people are mad on the text line today. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
How do team needs affect how you look at the draft board?
They don't affect the board at all. The board is set up according to NFL standards. And so in theory, now this would never happen, but in theory you're saying if our board has 4 7-0s on it, then all the boards across the league will have 4 7-0s on them. Now we know that won't be the case. But generally your board is set up according to the league simply because, as we all know, if you are putting a middle linebacker, you're giving him a grade of 5.5, and then you start talking about it, you go, you know what, we really need a linebacker. Then all of a sudden he's a 5.9, and then, somebody else comes in, the linebacker coach says, you know what, I don't have any linebacker. Whoop, now all of a sudden he's a 6.5, and he keeps moving up the board, when in reality he's still 5.5. Mm-hmm. So in the first round, you go out and you draft a guy because you need him that is a third-round player in the first round. Well, that's the cardinal sin of drafting. You just can't do that.
How many of you guys hear that cut from 7 years ago or whenever it was with Floyd and say, hey, Floyd's right. Floyd's right. Can't do that. And then you did it, and now you're like, but we needed it next to Simmons, Jared. So somebody did send this in to me that Daniel Jeremiah had Tavondre Sweat ranked 48th on his top 50 before the weight concerns, the DWI, the maturity, that kind of thing all came out. Dane Brugler had him ranked 33rd at The Athletic. Here's the problem. Those things did happen. Those things did happen, right? The weight became a concern when teams found out, last year at Texas he played at 380. And they know you can't play 380 in the NFL. So he gets down to 360. And it's like, okay, that's a good sign. And again, the maturity stuff, I hear is real, but I don't know exactly what's what. But those things do push you down a little bit. And my big issue is the last administration, in my opinion, got fired for ignoring red flags. And this administration, let's say he is 33rd. And so there they are at 38 and they take him. You're ignoring the red flag. That pushes you down the board. And again, like the old man said, you can't necessarily do that. Boy, a lot of people are mad on the text line today. At 615-737-1025, one texter says, should have traded back with the Eagles when they were on the clock at 38 to get 50 and 53. That would have been a great deal for the Titans. So it would have been at least a little bit more complicated because Washington traded a third as part of that deal, and the Titans didn't have a third. And the Titans don't have a third next year. And I would say that it would not have been worth it to move off of 38 to pick up 2 seconds if you have to trade away next year's second. So it would have been hard to pull that off, but I agree. And I think I do feel like there is, to Brian Callahan's point, I think there's a shot you would have been able to get Sweat at 50. But I do agree with Brian Callahan's theory in general that moving from 38 to 50 does take you out of a certain caliber of player. Though A.J. Brown was taken at 51, but all these drafts are different. Let's go to Billy, who's up next here on the program. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Billy?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Jared. I don't really have a question, just a statement. I've listened to the show every day for about a year and a half. Love the show. I live in Indiana. I mean, my boys listen. The guy that just called in and compared Keith Bullock to a seventh-round draft pick that played safety in college that they're moving to linebacker, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, I'm a Kyle fan. I'm a Kyle fan, a loyal listener, but I tend to agree with you. I mean, I do not get excited, and I appreciate it. I do not get excited about day 3 picks because, while, yes, there is a Puka Nacua out there or a David Long Jr. out there, the reality is those guys are picked on day 3 for a reason. Day 3 is special teams guys. Day 3 is guys that might make the team, guys that are projects. Again, your day 3 picks, in the past, yes, look, Amon-Ra St. Brown's a good player. Puka Nacua is a good player. But for the most part, day 3 picks usually don't pan out. That's the point. That's why people want these top 60 picks, because those are the picks that are on days 1 and 2. So I don't like these guys. It's like even the guy that went to my school, who my friend that's the athletic director is sold on, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., I don't get excited about that because it's like, I mean, I've seen people get excited about Aaron Wallace and Sebastian Tritrola and and Jalen Finnegan show up the first game, drill the crap out of Chad Bennington, and now it's like, whoa, they might have got a player there. So, I mean, you guys lived Jalen Duncan last year. That's what I think of when I think of a day 3 player. So when it comes to taking a guy in the 7th round and say he's going to be Keith Bullock, I find that to be highly disrespectful to Keith Bullock. One texter says, just my opinion, I think the Titans are a 5-win team at best. I think they made good strides in what they needed to address. However, that won't give any impact until maybe a year or two. The defensive front has questions and will prove to be the downfall in the end on that side of the ball. The other side, I think the right side of the line and the quarterback will be an issue before week 6. And as a Steeler fan, I will admit that this is our coach's first losing season. So when it comes to how good the Titans are going to be, that's a different discussion for a different day. Like, I do not believe that the draft would have affected the Titans one way or another from if you think they're going to be a 3-win team to if you think they're going to be a 10-win team. Now, I don't think the draft this year swings it one way or another. Now, if they had 2 top 3 picks like Houston did last year, then maybe. But go back to that Jets game when C.J. Stroud was healthy and it rained. And all of his receivers got hurt. And it was just him out there. And he was not very good. And that was free agency to me that really propelled the Texans. One texter says, day 3 picks don't get you fired. It's the first 2 rounds that you have to hit on. Bingo. To me, agreed. So what? You missed on Cole McDonald. Who cares? One texter says, on the James Williams front, I do not agree with your caller's overly positive comment. I have seen him play 21 times live in his home and road games. This must be a very big Miami fan. His athleticism is superior, and he's been playing out of position his entire time at Miami. He would have been a linebacker at Miami, and he should have been a linebacker at Miami, and nobody should have viewed him as a day 1 linebacker. However, he's fast on the field and hits like a ton of bricks. He can be a special teams player in year 1. Great. But again, we're talking about Keith Bullock. We got to remember that we're talking about Keith Bullock, who's probably one of the 10 best players in the Tennessee Titans history. I'm not including the Oilers in this, but I'm just saying in the Tennessee Titans history, he's probably one of the 10 best players. I mean, it's just unbelievable. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, Dane Brugler, speaking of Dane Brugler at The Athletic, already has his 2025 way too early mock draft out. And where the Titans are picking and who the Titans are picking is certainly not going to sit well with a lot of you. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman & Company, 102.5-1063. The Game. Join Cromwell Media along with local athletes and musicians at Hermitage Golf Course on June 20th for the 615 Open. Make a difference while supporting Souls for Souls. Every $20 raised goes to a new pair of shoes for a local child experiencing homelessness. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So this morning I went to The Athletic, and I saw that they've got their way too early 2025 mock draft out. And I clicked it. Now, again, on April 30th, 2024, how much credence do I give to a 2025 mock draft? Not a lot. Remember, Joe Burrow was supposedly going to be a 6th-round pick before he went off at LSU, and he was the number 1 pick of the draft. Jaden Daniels, people were not thinking was a first-round draft choice this time last year, so a lot can change. But Dane Brugler did his mock draft, and the thing that stood out to me was the order with which he had the picks, and he did it based off of the Vegas gambling odds. Carolina had the number 1 pick. Ian, would it surprise you at all if Carolina is picking number 1 next year?
No, probably not.
Guess who had pick number 2?
Who's that?
You.
Oh.
You. And in Dane Brugler's mock draft, he had the Titans taking Carson Beck, the quarterback out of Georgia, with the 2nd overall pick in next year's draft. Now, again, how big of a deal is a 2025 mock draft 3 days after the end of the 2024 draft? In fact, I pulled up Pro Football Focus's mock draft from last year, and the number 1 pick in their way too early mock draft for 2024 was the Arizona Cardinals at number 1 with the Houston Texans pick. And the Houston Texans obviously played in the divisional round of the playoffs. And so that doesn't mean that's what it's going to be or anything like that. But again, Carson Beck at number 2 as the first quarterback off the board in the 2025 mock draft. Now, let me just say this. Not that I know what Carson Beck is going to develop into. Maybe he'll be the next John Elway. I don't know. But I just have a feeling that this will be my reaction this time next year if the Titans draft Carson Beck with the 2nd pick.
The Tennessee Titans select J.C. Latham.
Oh, no, God. Okay. So, I mean, I really don't like the idea of Carson Beck being a Titan. Brugler writes, if the Titans are drafting this high next April, the organization might be re-examining its quarterback situation in his first year as a starter. Beck got consistently better with each performance and put some beautiful throws on tape. He enters the season as the quarterbacks the scouts like the most. So make of that what you will. But I don't care about Carson Beck, and I don't care about... Again, Brugler has the Titans at 2 in his mock draft because that's what the betting markets think. Translation? Everybody outside of Nashville feels a lot different about the Tennessee Titans and their offseason and their future this season than the people inside this town do. In Nashville, there is a sentiment that Will Levis is already a franchise quarterback. The guy who won 3 games this past year is for sure, no doubt, a franchise quarterback. There were people that went crazy when we talked about if Drake May falls, would you take him or how could you say that he's a franchise quarterback? Outside of Nashville, the sentiment is surrounding Will Levis that he kind of sucks. Now, I don't believe either. I don't believe Levis is a franchise quarterback. I don't believe Levis sucks. I believe Levis is right there at the point of development where he is hitting the fork in the road and it's going to go one way or the other. And I don't know which way it's going to go. And I think it's equally as likely that it goes one way or the other. But I have no idea. In Nashville, the sentiment is the Titans loaded up this offseason. Ridley, Pollard, Cushenberry, Snead, and that makes the Titans much, much, much better. Outside of Nashville, the sentiment is that signing Calvin Ridley was, quote-unquote, bad business. That's what an unnamed league executive said in Mike Sando's column post-free agency. The Ridley signing was bad business. Another executive said it looked like just signing those guys like the Titans didn't have a plan. They just threw a bunch of money. Outside of Nashville, we hear, well, Kansas City really didn't want to re-sign L'Jarius Sneed because, as Carrington Harrison, a local radio host in Kansas City, said, when Sneed was still a Chief, the knees really are that bad. We played the cut. Carrington Harrison, who I think's got pretty good sources with the Chiefs, Carrington Harrison said, L'Jarius Sneed needs to take the money because he is a injury liability. He's an injury liability, and he needs to take the money because the knees are that bad. And I think the way Carrington said it was, people say, oh, no, the knees aren't that bad. And he said, oh, no, the knees are that bad. Minnesota reportedly pulled their offer when they did more research on the knees. So outside of Nashville, the sentiment is L'Jarius Sneed, damaged goods. The sentiment inside of Nashville, L'Jarius Sneed's knees are not a problem. He was great last year. He'll be great next year. Now, I don't know which way it's going to go. I really don't have a feel about this Titans team. I have a hard time believing they're going to be really, really good. But I could see them not being terrible next year. But I just think it's crazy to me when I compare and contrast how everybody in town feels about the Titans compared to how everybody out of town feels about the Titans. And truly, I sit right down the middle. I mean, I could see the Titans of the AFC South, the winner of the division each of the last 2 years, has been the fourth place team. And what was the difference in each of those teams? Jacksonville developed their quarterback to a certain extent, which was good enough to win a division, and Houston found a quarterback. With your quarterback, who knows? That's actually why I said what Dane Brugler's mock draft has is exactly why I said that I wouldn't trade next year's first no matter what kind of discussions and offers and things like that we're having, because that's my Will Levis insurance. If Levis stinks, you're going to be picking high. That's your quarterback. But again, I have a very hard time kind of comparing and contrasting how the people in town feel about the Titans compared to the people outside of town. And as is the case with almost anything, the truth is usually right there in the middle. My gut is telling me that the Titans are probably an average 6, 7, 8 win team. And that maybe, if T'Vondre Sweat is the man, maybe that kicks him up a notch. I don't know. But last year, the national media and the betting markets and everything else, they were telling us the Titans were going to be extremely average. And I didn't believe it. I did not believe it. I thought the Titans were going to be able to compete. And then the Titans were bad. Because, again, these red flags that you guys just ignore, Andre Dillard, the reason he couldn't play in Philadelphia wasn't because Jordan Mailata was so good. It was because Andre Dillard sucks. And that was a problem. Oh, Jared, Aaron Brewer's lack of size won't matter when he moves to center. He will be great. Got it. I knew from the first week that the Titans' offensive line was a disaster. And I said so after watching the tape. And then people got mad because ESPN.com did a ranking that said the Titans' offensive line was good. Yeah. Those are people that don't want to admit reality. The people that think that, how dare they have us picking second next year? How dare you, Jared, bring up the red flags on Ridley or Sneed or Sweat? Yeah, that's you. That last year saw one ESPN.com story after week 1 and said the offensive line was good. But again, I'm right down the middle. And I'm not going to be sitting here arguing that I'm one thing or another. Again, outside of Nashville, they think you're going to pick second. Outside of Nashville, they think Calvin Ridley, bad business. I cannot wait until the Mike Sando post-draft, where he talks to the league executives unfiltered. I can't wait till that comes out about the draft because I want to see, was Latham a reach at 7? Because the draft gurus say so. What about Sweat? What about the off the fields? I want to see that. But again, the sentiment outside of town and the sentiment in town are just not even remotely close. And I find that to be fascinating. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. 615-737-1025. And there was some talk. There's some talk. I was going to say there was some talk, but I think there is some talk. There is some talk about a resurgence by a certain Titan that I'm just going to tell you I'm done waiting on. You guys can go all in, but I'm not. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I mean, Traylon's having a really good offseason. His attitude and his approach, you know. With our new strength and conditioning staff, you know, led by Zach Woodfin, you know, and now, you know, him getting with Coach Tobert, you know, the arrow's pointing up on Traylon. Like I said, he's having a really good offseason. And, the big thing for Traylon is staying healthy. Staying healthy, staying out there, and giving him more opportunities to get the ball. But I like where Traylon is right now.
That was Rand Carthon on Robbie and Rex Road yesterday. Apparently Brian Callahan had similar sentiments about Traylon Burks. And Traylon has been so impressive this offseason, and I really like the work Traylon's put in. And we got to this with Traylon, and we got to that with Traylon. And I got in the car today, and I heard D-Mace just screaming. And D-Mace was screaming about somebody getting more targets, and how can you say he's not good if he's not getting the ball, and how can he this, and how can he? And I'm literally sitting in my car, and I have not heard them mention who they're talking about. And I said to myself, they're probably talking about Burks. And guess what, Ian?
They were talking about Burks.
They were talking about Burks. Let me say this about Burks. Again, I talked about how convenient it was that Rand Carthon just happened to get a text message and tell everybody about it 3 days after the fact that a GM said, good thing you didn't trade down on T'Vondre Sweat because we would have taken him. Very convenient. I also think it is incredibly convenient that the Titans, Carthon and Callahan, are now very excited for Traylon Burks in 2024 when they didn't draft a receiver on day 1 or day 2. What did TD tell us? If Marvin Harrison was available, he's the pick. TD told us there could be, if it's Alton Neighbors, there could be a debate there, and it could be Neighbors. So it wasn't like the Titans weren't looking at receiver because they had Traylon Burks. They just didn't get any of the receivers they wanted. And so now that they didn't get any of the receivers they wanted, their choices are twofold. One, it is to hope and pray that Traylon Burks works out and that he finally realizes the ability, that he finally, between his conditioning and between his injuries and between his opportunities and everything else, that it all aligns and that he finally puts it together. Or the Titans are looking at it saying, well, what are we going to do now? Bank on Kearis Jackson? So again, I find this to be very convenient that after the draft, when the Titans didn't draft any receivers, that now all of a sudden, I know they drafted one in like the 6th round or whatever from Tulane, that doesn't count. I'm talking about real receivers. That now it's like, well, let's see what Burks does. Let me just state for the record, because somebody in the text line is like, you hated the signing of DeAndre Hopkins. And I'm like, that's just not true. We did a DeAndre watch on this show. We talked about DeAndre Hopkins every day this summer. I wanted to sign DeAndre Hopkins. What I didn't want to do was trade draft picks for DeAndre Hopkins, and they didn't. So let me just make this abundantly clear how I feel about Chig and Burks and, the guys that we've just been waiting on forever. You guys keep waiting, see what happens. Me? I'm not interested in banking on somebody that has proven to me for 2 years that I can't count on him. For whatever reason it may be, I can't count on Burks. And I heard Derek today, again, in his defense of Traylon Burks, saying that Traylon Burks needs the ball more. And I'm thinking, they just paid one guy $50 million to catch the ball. They paid another guy $8 million to run the ball and to catch it out of the backfield. They're not trying to get Burks more targets with this offense. They're trying to get him less targets. This time last year, it was him and nobody else at receiver. Now it's Hopkins and Ridley, and they signed Tony Pollard, and they got Spear. They are trying to not throw him the ball. So with Burks and Chig, you guys can keep waiting. Last year at training camp, I really thought these guys are going to break out this year. And they both sucked. And so instead of doing what would be convenient for me emotionally to sit there and say, you know what? Chig had a bad season last year, but he came on late. And now that Tim Kelly's out and Brian Callahan's in, Chig's going to blow up. Or I can say, Chig was a 4th-round pick who's probably a backup. And last year when they elevated him to a starter spot, which I wasn't completely comfortable with, but let's see, he played like a backup who's not fit for a starter's role. Why would that change? And with Burks, he's one of those guys where it's always something. And I think Burks has as much talent as anybody on that roster. I really do. Like pure God-given natural ability. But it's always something. So why are you guys wanting to sit here and do the opposite now? Say, you know what? Now it's going to work. Come on now. One texter says Zay Jones was cut by the Jags. I would not mind the Titans taking a look. Is it just me or has Zay Jones been cut by 90% of the league? I mean, he's like the Peter Laviolette of wide receivers. He played for everybody. And I've never felt like Zay Jones was anything special. I've always thought Zay Jones is just a guy or whatever it may be or whatever. One texter says, the very next time there's a press conference or an open locker room, we want you to go in there and ask these questions to these guys so we can hear the players and coaches and general manager respond directly to you. I don't understand this idea like I'm not going to be willing to do that. You do remember me versus Vrabel last year, right? Like you do remember when I asked John Robinson, when I was the one that's like, so are you going to trade A.J. Brown on draft night? And he said, I don't foresee doing it. I have never been shy. If I don't like something, I have never been shy about saying it. Because as I was talking to somebody earlier today, I said, look, I do not believe in saying one thing on the radio and then not saying it if I am around that person. I'm not going to go up to somebody and say, hey, man, you suck. I'm not going to do that. But if somebody were to come up to me and they were to say, I have a problem with something you said, I would be like, look, man, I think you stink. Sorry. And again, you remember the Vrabel interactions over the years. If I'm not going to be intimidated by Vrabel, who am I going to be intimidated by? And I wasn't intimidated by him. I asked him about Craig Aukerman, and he got mad. I asked him about those New England comments, and he got mad. I asked him about the assistant coaches, and he got mad. I asked him about Skoronski, and he got mad about why he wouldn't play Peter Skoronski at left tackle, even though Andre Dillard was a bum. So you guys acting like, to me, if you say it on the radio, you're saying it to somebody's face because all these people listen to the radio. If somebody was talking about you every day, don't you think you'd listen? So this idea that like, Jared's afraid, when have I ever been afraid? Was I afraid when I asked Ken Whisenhunt if he was going to give up the play calling? And Terry McCormick sitting behind me because God forbid somebody in Nashville come into these press conferences and really ask the questions that matter. And Terry McCormick behind me, and I love Terry, I'm not throwing him under the bus, but he did do this. He goes, shh. Like, how dare you question Ken Whisenhunt? Has that ever stopped me? No. It's not going to stop me now. So this whole, you don't understand, you just, well. One texter says, what do you think about the Rams trade where they went up to 39 with Carolina and the Rams ended up giving up 52, 155 and a second next year, which is what they gave to Carolina at 39. Would the Titans still have gotten Tavondre Sweat at 52? They say no. The Draft Gurus boards say yes. The reality, we'll never know. We'll never know. I remember when Rashad Weaver got drafted, and I want to say a week after Weaver got drafted, it came out that he had gotten arrested for a bar fight in Pittsburgh like a week before the draft, and it was like, wow. After Isaiah Wilson last year, the Titans drafted this guy, and they didn't know that he had just been arrested. And Kaharski was reporting that some of these teams knew about it. And then there was other people that were reporting that the Titans, that the rest of the league didn't know about it. And so there's never really any way to know, like, did the rest of the league really know about Rashad Weaver? Or did the Titans not know about Rashad Weaver? Or why did the Titans not ask Rashad Weaver? Or why, like, you'll never know. So we'll never know if Tavondre Sweat would have been there. You'd have to sit down and ask every single one of those GMs, coaches, presidents, everything else, and what have you. Doug in Franklin says, you called Rand a liar after a press conference this year. Would you do that face-to-face? I mean, I don't remember what it is that I said Rand lied about, but I would absolutely bring up, if there was something that I thought he lied about, which I think, if somebody tries to pass on some bull crap, do I ever not sit there and say that's bull crap? That's what we do. But I don't remember what it was. Now, again, when it comes to this, I'll tell you this right now. The GM that texted Rand, you took our guy on Tavondre Sweat. If he showed me the text message or he said who it was, said so-and-so called me, who was it? That was Johnny Joe with the Eagles. He said it. Then I'll apologize. But I don't think that's going to happen. Because I just don't think it's true. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Clear the board. We'll get back into your Titans thoughts. But there is a massive elimination game for the Predators. Now, it would be dishonest of me for me to sit here and tell you that I think the Predators have a chance to come back and win this series. But it would also be dishonest of me to not say the one thing that I truly feel like I've learned over the decade of covering this team that almost kind of feels like a cardinal rule. We'll get to that coming up next here on the program. Let's talk about Twice Daily. I love Twice Daily. Twice Daily has your cravings, and you can save on every single visit. Stop in and get rewarded. All you need to do is join the Twice Daily Rewards program to unlock special discount savings, enter their sweepstakes, and so much more. Try their new wraps, the Italian, the ham and cheddar, the turkey and Swiss, and the Nashville hot chicken. They're made to order with your favorite toppings, so when you download the Twice Daily app, you can order ahead. It's really that simple. I do it all the time. Love Twice Daily. Or at Twice Daily, it's snack time all the time, and they've got favorites like chicken fingers, tater rounds, and new pretzels. So, get to Twice Daily today. Twice Daily, what are you craving?
Andrew, in your experience as a player and a coach, when you're on a team facing elimination, what have you found to be the best approach?
Well, I think sort of etch a sketch, goldfish kind of mentality, and you go in and you had to win a game in there regardless, and you just go win one. And everything is, all the focus, all the effort is just about tomorrow night. Doesn't matter how you got here. This is playoff hockey. Things happen fast. Things change fast, and let's change the narrative tomorrow.
Yeah, it was Andrew Burnett. So the Predators tonight taking on Vancouver at 9 o'clock. Let me say this. I think the series is over. I think that the Predators simply just don't have the horses to be able to come back down 3-1. And I, quite frankly, am incredibly disappointed at what I find to be such a blown opportunity this series. They should have won game 1. They didn't. They probably should have lost game 2. They won that. They could have won game 3, and they absolutely, they probably at one point had like a 99.5% chance of winning that game and blew it. And so now they got to win the next 3 in a row against the solid Vancouver team, albeit not a great Vancouver team, and a Vancouver team that is still having goalie health issues. It would be dishonest of me to tell you that I think the Predators have a real chance to win this series. And I'd love to be wrong, but again, who are we kidding? But there is one thing that I firmly believe about the NHL playoffs, which are different than other playoffs. They're different than other sports. It's just different. It's like when Tennessee baseball was the best team a couple of years ago, and Tennessee baseball fans who had never cared about baseball because UT had never been good at baseball could not comprehend how hard it is to win a national championship and how fakakta college baseball can be. I believe that in the NHL, each playoff game is different from the one before it and has nothing to do with the one that comes after it. Momentum means nothing in the NHL playoffs. And I didn't used to think that. I used to think that momentum was real and that it could carry and it could. And in the other sports, in basketball, momentum's absolutely real. Because nothing really changes game to game in basketball. Same players. Normally same stadium, sometimes different. Same ball. Same 5 guys. Momentum's real in basketball. In baseball, they say that momentum is only as good as tomorrow's starting pitcher, which is kind of true. But where what happens in previous games really affects future games is the bullpen, right? So let's say you go 12 innings and lose a game and you use 7 relievers. Well, now, your relievers are not going to be as effective the next day because you've burned through the bullpen. Hockey, it's so wild to me about how what happened last night means absolutely nothing in the next game. And again, I used to really believe in those things. I used to really believe in momentum. And momentum exists in games. And momentum exists during the season. But it absolutely does not exist game to game in the NHL playoffs. And I can just go through all these numerous examples of where the momentum didn't really matter. I go back to 2016. The Predators were the 7th seed. Anaheim was the 2 seed. The Predators went on the road to Anaheim. They won in games 1 and 2. And I'm sitting here thinking this series is over. All you got to do is take one game at Bridgestone Arena, and now it's 3-1. And now that it's 3-1, you're going to clearly knock them out at some point. And Anaheim won the next 3 games in a row. They came into Bridgestone. They won game 2. They won game 3. They went on the road to Anaheim. They won game 5. And I was like, well, so much for that series being over. This baby's done. And then the Predators won game 6 at Bridgestone Arena. Pekka stole game 7. Into the series. You win. Each game was independent of the game before it. The next series, they played San Jose. San Jose took games 1 and 2. Predators took games 3 and 4 at home. And game 4 was 4 overtime, Ian?
3?
3-4 overtime, the Mike Fisher goal?
I think it was the 3rd overtime.
That game, and it was a late start that night, too. That game was over like 2 in the morning. And that game, I thought the Predators had all the momentum. Then they went out to San Jose, got their ass kicked. Came back to Bridgestone Arena, down 3-2, won the game in overtime. Had all the momentum, flew back out of San Jose, got their ass kicked again. The Cup final. Predators win games 3 and 4 in Nashville. All the positive energy. They evened up the series. It felt like, okay, series on. The preliminaries are out of the way. Here you go, mano a mano. They go back to Pittsburgh and they get spanked. With all that positive momentum. So on one hand, I do not think the Predators are going to be able to win this series. I think the horses left the barn. I don't think the team is good enough. And quite frankly, I do not think that the team deserves to win this series. And I do not think that they have the fortitude inside to be able to pull this off. I just don't. But as far as the epic collapse on Sunday, and that being a factor as to why this team is going to lose tonight, does not fit my theory that I feel like after, 11, 12, 14 playoff series since I've been on the air here, that I feel like I've fostered over the years. I've been covering the NHL for a decade, for over a decade. 2013 was the first year I covered the NHL. That year, I covered the Boston Bruins. I was in New Hampshire, which is part of New England, and I covered the Boston Bruins, and the Boston Bruins had a 3-1 lead against the Maple Leafs in round 1. They lost game 5. Okay. They go to Toronto, they lose game 6. Ooh. Game 7. They play game 7. They're down 3-1 in the third period. They come back and win the game in overtime, kind of like what happened last night. They come back and win the game in overtime. And you would think all that momentum would have carried them. Had nothing to do with the next series against New York. Game 6 had nothing to do with Game 7. Game 5 had nothing to do with Game 6, which had nothing to do with the previous 4 games before it. So I do think the Predators can win a hockey game. Especially, and we don't know what the goaltending situation is going to be in Vancouver. Supposedly, Rick Tocchet met with the media, and he said that it's up in the air between Casey DeSmith and Arturas Silvas as to who's going to start. I had a buddy of mine tell me yesterday that the goalie that Vancouver put out there Sunday night's waiting tables at Applebee's tonight, and there may be some truth to that. So, I mean, I don't think I think they both stink, so I don't think it necessarily matters who plays in net for them. But the Predators could absolutely win tonight just because what happened on Saturday, which is normally a throw in the towel kind of performance, again, in my opinion, does not affect what happens game to game in the NHL playoffs. It would not shock me if the Predators win tonight. It would shock me if the Predators win this series, but it would not shock me if they win tonight. I also have always thought this, although when I would say like 2017, I kind of bought the hype a little bit. And Barry Melrose was coming on the show saying, yeah, home ice doesn't matter. But I kind of believe home ice is a little overrated in the NHL playoffs. So I'm not worried about going to Vancouver and winning there, even though the atmosphere there, it looks electric on TV. Now, I do worry about the Predators having the marbles to be able to pull this off. But I do not think that, again, what happened Sunday is going to be a reflection of what's going to happen tonight. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. And I do wonder, it would be convenient to believe this about the Predators tonight. It would be convenient to believe it. But I do wonder if there's a possibility that something that might be what's able to help, that it might exist. Again, if I just absolutely put my hands down and said I believed it, I'd be a homer. But could it be a possibility? We'll discuss. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5-106 The Game. Let's talk about FanDuel Sportsbook. That's my official sportsbook app. Dingers, blasts, moonshots, whatever you call it. Everybody loves the long ball. Everybody likes home runs. Everybody likes watching that ball just go, 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 go. And with FanDuel's Dinger Tuesdays, you can love them even more. Because right now, Dinger Tuesdays are back for another season on America's #1 sportsbook. Just bet on a player to hit a homer, and FanDuel will give you $5 in bonus bets for every single long ball hit that game. As if you needed another reason to love the long ball. Visit FanDuel.com/JGM to get in on all the Dinger Tuesday action. Again, that's my official sportsbook app, FanDuel.com/JGM. And make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. 21 and over and present in Tennessee. Bonus issue is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after a seat. Max bonus $25 per game. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
You guys have really carried the play the last couple of games here. How much confidence does that give you heading into Game 5?
Yeah, I mean, especially we talk about, some back-to-back performances as far as building our game. We talk about building our game, and now we're in the thick of the series here, and we put together some back-to-back, good efforts. But like I said, it's tough to swallow when you don't get the results. But that's the way playoff hockey is. You've got to find a way to close it out. Obviously, we've talked about it many times here. The difference between winning and losing is such a fine line, and but we've got confidence in our group here. We've won a game on the road. We like playing on the road. It's just a matter of having that focus here for one game.
Okay, that was Ryan McDonough yesterday before the team went to Vancouver. And so, again, I can't do these things where there's two outcomes, the fork in the road. There is the, oh, man, if all the stars align, this could happen, and then saying, this is going to happen, like the caller earlier today that said that the 7th round safety that the Titans draft is going to be the next Keith Bullock. But there is at least a possibility that this happens with the Predators, which is, the Predators got embarrassed the other night. That's as bad as it can get, right? If you had to choose between losing a game that you were up 3-1 with 3 minutes to go that would make the series 2-2 or losing 100-0, you might pick losing 100-0. Seriously. So, there's some real juice, some real meat on that bone. But I do remember when the Predators got embarrassed 9-2 against Dallas. I went to the game, and I put my head in my hands, and I was like, oh, God, oh, God, oh, God, this is awful. And the next day, I went to St. Louis with the team, and I told everybody, I was like, hey, they're going to win tomorrow night in St. Louis. And everybody was like, well, I hope that's what happens. And I'm like, no, they're going to win. Because they got embarrassed so bad on Thursday. It's like I always say, the team that's about to play the Titans, I want to win 41-14 every week. Unless it's an AFC South team and you need it for the division or something like that. Then you need them to lose and hope that they still don't get so pissed off. But the last thing I want to see is, let's say it's the Titans and the Ravens in week 4, and the last thing I want to see in week 3 is for the Ravens to just get housed. Because then the Ravens are going to spend all week focused and all week dedicated, and it's going to be the best game plan, and they're going to execute it because they don't want to get embarrassed again. The market correction. Well, that's what the Predators did when they went on that 18-game point streak after they got embarrassed 9-2 against Dallas. So I do wonder if there's just a little bit of that we could see from the Predators tonight. And if anything's going to propel them to winning this series, it's going to be that. Well, that and the goalie playing better, and that and Yossi and Forsberg showing up, and that and the Predators getting some pucks on these backup AHL goalies, that would also go a long way. But to me, it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be that the Predators find their way back into this series because they are relentless and they are resilient and all the things Andrew Burnett has said that they are over the last 3 days, which I think more so he's trying to talk into existence than it is that he believes them, or they're going to get slaughtered like the Lambs tonight. That they're going to go out there and just down 3-1, just drop the helmets and just Cancun on 3. That being said, I don't think this is a Cancun on 3 kind of team. They just haven't been that all year. So while, again, I don't think they're good enough to overcome a 3-1 deficit, even against a team with backup goalies and a team that really I'm not sure is all that good, even though I don't think they're going to do it, I will say that a lot of people counted them out after that Dallas game, and everybody was talking about they were going to be sellers and everything else, and they ended up putting themselves right back in playoff contention and put themselves into the playoffs with the way that they played. But it's either going to be that or it's going to be a slaughter tonight. And I don't know which one it's going to be. 615-737-1025. One little nugget. Alex Daugherty of the Tennessean is there in Vancouver, and so he's been covering morning skate and all the other stuff and whatnot. And apparently the lines. Now, this doesn't mean that this is what's going to happen tonight in the game. In fact, Ian, wouldn't you expect if Andrew Burnett was going to make a line change that he wouldn't show it in morning skate?
Oh, that's a good question. During the day of the game, morning skate, I don't know how that works.
I mean, these guys are so secretive as to what they're going to do. So the lines this morning at morning skate were the same as game 4. I will be shocked if Tommy Novak is in the lineup tonight. I mean, Andrew Burnett is doing his best not to play him. So what's the point of having him active tonight when, again, you don't get to control the matchups and you know that he can't play here? Like, he cannot play in this series. And so I was stunned a little bit when I saw that Alex said that there are absolutely no changes. But then I thought to myself, this is the NHL playoffs, and these guys, they never commit to anything. And again, Rick Tocchet said about an hour ago that he's going to make a game-time decision on goalie. I'm certain Rick Tocchet knows who's going to start in net for them. Certain of it. He knows it's either going to be DeSmith or it's going to be Seeloffs. One of those guys is going. He knows who it's going to be. He knows if DeSmith is healthy enough or not. But they just say they don't say that. So I am hoping that Novak is out and that Andrew Burnett's just trying to hide it a little bit. If Novak's in there, we had Andrew Burnett on when we did the Preds playoff preview show, and I asked him, what'd you learn from your experience as the interim coach in Florida a couple of years ago? And he said that, he learned some things he wanted to keep internal, but kind of hinted at the idea that there's not time to make adjustments in the playoffs. You better just do it. And if he doesn't take Tommy Novak out, then I'm going to be disappointed in the coach. David says, I counted them out after Sunday. What a disappointment. I know. But that 9-2 was a disappointment. And the Predators showed up. Again, Chris Sanders says this all the time. That you always have two choices. Ian, you know what the two choices Chris Sanders says you always have are?
Get better or get better.
And I felt like after that 9-2 loss to Dallas, they got better. They didn't get bitter. Let's see if it's the same kind of mentality here or if it is and I felt like they played this way in overtime on Sunday night, which was the heads down, we can't beat this team, screw it. And if that's the case, then you're porked. But that's why we play the games. Barry Trotz will join us at 5 o'clock today, and I am fascinated by how that's going to go. Because, everything, we've talked to Barry every week since October. And every week that we've talked to Barry Trotz, for the most part, it's been positive. And even when it's been negative, it's like it's okay that it was negative because this is the year that Barry Trotz told everybody, we may not be very good. And so we accepted it. But now, it's like everybody with eyes knows that you should have won this series. Maybe not by now, but you should probably be up 3-1 in this series. And ultimately, you should have won it. And it doesn't feel like you're going to win it. So we shall see. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. So the Titans have decided to go to a thesis statement when it comes to this whole J.C. Latham right tackle, left tackle thing that is incredibly convenient for this discussion. But in the context of their football team, it makes no sense. We'll get to that coming up next here on the program. Speaking of that phone number, let's give something away. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you'll win a pair of tickets to see Stevie Nicks at Bridgestone Arena on Tuesday, May 14th. Good luck. Stillman & Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios. Trevor, in 30 minutes, his thoughts on the Titans draft class as a whole, plus Barry Trotz at 5 o'clock. So, Rand Carthon was on Robbie and Rex Road yesterday at 7 a.m. Ian, do you think I was awake at 7 a.m. yesterday?
No, probably not.
I was not. So I texted Robbie. I said, what did Rand say, in the interview? Was anything interesting, anything fascinating? And then I went to walk my puppy, and so I had my headphones on, and I was listening to the Rand Carthon interview on Robbie and Rex Road. And as I was doing it, Robbie said, yeah, he said about Latham playing right or left tackle something you're going to hate, which is that you need 2 tackles in this league in order to be successful anyways. And Robbie's right. I do hate that. But the reason that I hate this is not because I don't agree with it, but it is because this is now the new sentiment the Titans are rolling out there in case their grand plan for their 7th overall draft pick doesn't work, which is converting him to left tackle, saying that, okay, if he has to go back to right tackle, it's okay because you need 2 new tackles, right? This was Rand Carthon yesterday on Robbie and Joe.
I mean, the way we really see it is in this game you need 2 offensive tackles. The position is just offensive tackle at this point. All these kids, whether you started off at left or you started off at right in college, these kids, when they start training for the combine, for their pro day, they train at both sides, and you get to see them at these combines and pro days playing from both sides, in terms of switching up their stances. So it was a big part of it, but in this game now, most of the best rushers in the league now rush over the right tackle, so you have to have 2 in this league regardless.
Okay. I don't disagree with the fact that you need to have 2 tackles. How many times have we told the right tackle story on this program? So I don't disagree with that. I still think left tackle is more important because with a right-handed quarterback, it protects his blind side. He can't see that rusher, whereas he can't see the rusher in front of him. Now, I don't care if you've got a better rusher on the right side than the left side. The quarterback can at least see it, so if he sees the guy, he can throw it away or do something. But here's what I don't like. It's awfully convenient for Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan that now that they've drafted a right tackle who they plan to move over to left tackle, but they don't actually know can play left tackle, that now it doesn't matter what tackle spot he plays because you have to have 2 tackles in order to play in this league. And I'm sure a lot of people heard that and thought, makes sense to me. Worst case scenario, he can't play left tackle. That's fine. He'll play right tackle because you need a right tackle anyways because you got to have 2 tackles. Here's the problem. They only have 1 tackle, period. It's Latham. They only have 1 tackle. So if Latham plays left tackle, that's great. But they don't have a right tackle. And if Latham can't play left tackle and he has to move over to right tackle, then they don't have a left tackle and they're in the exact same spot that they were last year when they were rotating Andre Dillard and Jalen Duncan. So again, the narrative today is we have to have 2 tackles. So it doesn't matter if Latham plays left tackle or right tackle. Convenient. Reality is you have 1 tackle. And the Titans went into free agency. And how many tackles did the Titans sign? 0. And they added 1 tackle with a 7th round draft choice for a trade from a guy from Cleveland who has never started an NFL game. That's not a starting tackle. Jermaine Illuminor was out there. Jonah Williams was out there. Andrus Peat is out there now. And the Titans just completely ignored the tackle position. So what are they going to do? If you need 2 tackles, and if tackle is an important position, so important that it doesn't matter if it's right or left tackle, which I don't agree with, but make of it what you will. Who's the other tackle? Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
He sucks. Duncan sucks. The only thing that they've done when it comes to adding tackles or getting rid of tackles or whatever it may be this offseason is they've decided that they don't want to play Peter Skoronski or Dylan Radins at tackle. So take them out of it. So I literally laugh out loud at this game of CYA that Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan are playing. Because they're doing this whole, well, we got to have it because you got to play tackle either way. So if he ends up being a right tackle, it's not a total failure. And they're doing that because just in case the 7th pick, again, the highest pick the Titans have made since Corey Davis, if he can't play left tackle, which is their grand master plan, if he can't play left tackle, they want the out that, well, hey, at least he can play right tackle, and it's not that big of a difference because you need 2 tackles either way. But it ignores the fact that they don't have a second tackle. Congratulations, Brian Callahan. You're right. You need 2 tackles. You only have 1. It's mind-boggling. Because, again, the premise is it doesn't matter if J.C. Latham plays left tackle or right tackle. A premise I don't necessarily agree with, but that's the premise. It doesn't matter if he's a left tackle or he's a right tackle because you need 2 tackles. Now, that I agree with. But, again, it's a problem when you only have 1 tackle. And as far as the whole Latham left tackle, right tackle, it is a failure if he cannot play left tackle. I mean, I talked to a former NFL coach this weekend, the same one that texted me when the Titans were on the clock and said, take the tight end out of Georgia, he's going to the Hall of Fame. And I said to him, I could not believe that Brian Callahan at the press conference on Thursday said, well, if he can't play left tackle, we'll move him back to right tackle. I said, if he can't play left tackle, this is the 7th pick. If he can't play left tackle, if you're convinced that he can play left tackle and you're making this kind of investment in him and he can't play left tackle, you're fired. And I said that, and I was thinking that the former coach was going to be, oh, Jared, you're so hard. You shouldn't say that. He laughed. The coach laughed and said, I'll tell you, man, you say what everybody else thinks. And I'm like, because these coaches, they know. They know. So, Robbie's right. When he texted me and he said, you're going to hate that Rand said that it doesn't matter if Latham can't play left tackle because you need 2 tackles. He's right. I hate that. Number one, I hate this idea that it's okay for you to miss on the 7th pick. I hate the fact that it is okay for you to have a plan B in case you whiff on an incredibly high pick. But more so, I hate it because you only have 1 tackle. Congratulations. You got to April 30th and you finally realized that you need 2 tackles. But in March, in free agency, when this was an issue, apparently you didn't think you needed 2 tackles. It's amazing. It's astounding. And guess what's going to happen? The same thing that happened last year, which is you're going to get into September and October, and you're going to be recycling through this group of bums that's gotten everybody else fired already. PT, Dylan Radins, Andre Dillard, Jalen Duncan, these guys have all gotten people already fired. Radins and Petit Frere got Robinson fired, and PT and Duncan and those guys got Vrabel fired, and now you're going to roll back with the same guys, I guess. So when I hear this new line of Titan bullcrap, it's like today, and look, this didn't start with Rand. Vrabel offered up a lot of bullcrap. Robinson at the end, a lot of bullcrap. So this isn't new to them. But it's like, what's the flavor of the month bullcrap that they're going to sell us? And then watch it become a problem. Even though in April and May, they're like, oh, no, it won't be a problem, we promise. Just like last year. Just like when I got to training camp and I asked Vrabel, I said, are you nervous about the offensive line depth? And he said, I'm not nervous. I'm excited to coach them. I'm excited to coach Jamarco Jones and Jalen Duncan and Chris Hubbard and Andrew Rupchich and OJ. And I'm like, who's OJ! But I guess he wasn't nervous. Now, if I had told him then, I'd said, now, if this doesn't work out, you're not going to have a job next year. Now, were you nervous? How do you think you would have felt? So this whole, oh, well, you need 2 tackles. No crap. The problem is you have 1. Oh, goodness gracious. 615-737-1025. Robert in Spring Hill says, Jared, there's a lot of us out here that have been saying this all along. Even if they had drafted Joe Alt, they would still only have 1 tackle. So this is not new information. True. You're right. And I would still be complaining about right tackle. Hey, Ian, let's say that the Chargers had drafted J.C. Latham and the Titans at 7 took Joe Alt.
Okay.
Do you think, and let's say the draft was the exact same the rest of the way.
Okay.
So
just those swaps?
Sweat and, yeah. Do you think I'd have told the right tackle story at some point?
Probably.
Because they don't have a right tackle. You know, people were tweeting me and texting into the show Friday, and they're like, you've been the one complaining about right tackle all this time, and now they got a right tackle. But they didn't get a right tackle. They got a left tackle. They're telling you he's a left tackle.
We talked about going tackle, first 2 picks.
I wanted to go tackle.
I mean, that was a scenario that was brought up, and some people were for it. Some people weren't as gung-ho, but that was an option that we talked about, I think.
Let me tell you something. I know Daddy's a good line coach. But if you're going to roll PT and Jalen Duncan out there and they stink, I ain't giving you any benefit of the doubt because I know they suck. So that's on you. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. A lot of you want to weigh in on this, so we'll get to this. Plus, Adam Schefter threw out some what I think is bullcrap about what could have happened Thursday night. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
How's your anxiety level?
Bad.
The pick is in, Jared.
It's in.
Here he comes. Oh, here's the commish.
Let's see.
Here it comes.
If it's Joe Alt.
With the fifth pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Joe Alt.
Oh, my
No.
Jared is crying now. He doesn't know what the Titans are going to do now.
Tell him how you feel.
You guys got to go to Chris Sanders' Twitter feed because he's got video evidence of Jared.
Oh, my gosh.
Jared now has his head down on his right wrist. His left arm is bent around, and his left hand is in a tight fist. He's going to punch himself in the face in any minute.
There you go. That was Thursday night. It wasn't a good moment. And I thought that because the Chargers had no wide receivers, I thought that they were going to go wide receiver with Malik Neighbors on the board. And when they didn't, my heart sank. But Adam Schefter was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, and apparently, according to Shefty, he thinks that if I had been happy about Malik Neighbors at 5, that I still would have been upset one way or another. Here is a nugget from Adam Schefter that I was stunned by.
Hey, I believe that the Giants wanted Joe Alt to slide to them. That's my belief, that was the hope that he was going to get to them. And I think some of this quarterback talk for the Giants might have been a little camouflage to try to get somebody like Minnesota to trade up, because if they traded up to the Chargers spot at 5 and gotten J.J. McCarthy, Joe Alt would have slid right to the Giants slot at number 6. And that would have been ideal for a team that last year allowed its quarterbacks to be sacked 85 times. And in my mind also, Jim Harbaugh was never going to go wide receiver at 1. That's just not what he's looking to do. He wants to hit you in the mouth, and there have been some talk that they like J.C. Latham an awful lot. They like Joe Alt, who was considered the top tackle. I think when you spoke to people in this league, they all were convinced all along that the Chargers were going offensive tackle. Now, there were some people that thought it would be Latham. There were some people who thought they could move back from 5, and it would be Latham if they moved back. But they just stood right where they were. They took Joe Alt. Now, again, his natural position would be left tackle. Rashawn Slater, whose option they picked up, he's a left tackle. But you know what? You got 2 great tackles, and you make it work. Maybe you put Joe Alt here at right tackle. He could play there, and they're just going to say, this is how we're building our team.
Okay, let's start with the idea that the Giants were going to take Joe Alt. Bullcrap, right? Now, he did take an in-person visit to the Giants. He went to the Giants, he went to the Jets, he went to the Titans. But they were trying to trade up to 3 to get Drake May. And if they weren't trying to get Drake May, which Albert Breer is reporting, they offered 6 and their first rounder next year to New England to get up to 3. I mean, that's for Drake May. And if it's not for Drake May, it's got to be for Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Because the Chargers have 2 tackles and took Joe Alt. The Giants have 3 tackles. They're really going to take that guy? Like, I have a hard time believing that. I think now it's like people are, oh, yeah, actually we wanted Jimmy, and oh, yeah, I don't know. Somebody on Twitter said, put this up there with Adam Schefter saying that Condoleezza Rice was going to be the Browns head coach. I'm like, I cannot imagine Joe Alt to the Giants. Now, I do wonder this, though. The word on the street was that the Titans love J.C. Latham. Charles Robinson said it. TD said it. Charles Robinson said the day of the draft that the Titans were totally fine walking the card in at 7 with J.C. Latham. I do wonder if the Chargers put all that out there to see if Tennessee would call. Oh, wow, the Chargers are going to take Latham. That's our guy. Call him. What'll it take for us to get to 5 so you don't take Latham? And Latham said, in his availability the night that he got drafted, Latham said that the Titans were calling him asking if the Chargers had been talking to him. So I do wonder if the Chargers were trying to fan the Latham fires so that they could get the Titans to try to trade up to 5, because apparently the Titans love Latham so much. I believe that Latham was the top guy on the board for the Titans at tackle. Now, if they had taken Latham over Alt, woo, that would have been something. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Bubba's in Belle Meade. He's up next here on the program. Bubba, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
I think you've got this tackle thing all wrong. I'm surprised at you. I really am. I think the issue is, and I talked with Coach last night, they're going to go with an unbalanced line. They're going to put the center and then a guard, and then Chig is going to be the tight end, and they're going to overbalance with one tackle on the left side or the right side, whichever is going to be the strong side, and that's how they're going to get away with one tackle. What do you think?
Thanks for the call. Texter to the text line says, I have been a Titans fan since the beginning. I was an Oilers fan. During the draft, I told my son after the Latham and especially the Tavondre Sweat pick that I am done with this team. Originally, I was a fan because of the run and shoot. They have never been that as the Titans, and I am sick of this team, says the texter. He says, I am thinking about being a Chargers fan. Thus, I won't be accused of being a bandwagon fan, and they have more upside than the Titans. Let me say this. As much as I love Joe Alt, not giving Justin Herbert an elite receiver, and I believe they traded up for Ladd McConkey, right? That's the guy they ended up with. Not giving Justin Herbert Malik Neighbors, I think is so stupid. Like, I think it is so stupid to not give Herbert that guy. What's the point of a franchise quarterback if he's got nobody but Ladd McConkey to throw the ball to? They don't have a tight end. So, I mean, hey, more power to them. They got the guy I wanted. And it sounds like the Titans would have taken Latham even if Alt had been there, which, boy, would that have gotten me worked up more than I got worked up. But come on now. One texter says, Jared, let the professionals do their jobs. Obviously, the Titans believe in PT and the rest of the players. New head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. Right. But the players are always more important than the coaches. Listen to me here. Because a lot of you guys, when the Titans general manager, the guy who supposedly is making the picks, though who knows, when he decided not to go to the Senior Bowl to get the coaching staff together, you guys said, well, they got to put the coaching staff together. Coaches are not as important as players. Players are more important than coaches. And everybody will tell you that. If you keep playing the same guys that got the other coach and the other GM fired, you're going to end up with the same fate. That's just how it works. Trevor will join us next. His reaction, we know that he liked the Latham pick on Thursday night and changed his tune when it came to right tackle, left tackle. We'll see if now he's had some time to think about what he thinks about the Latham pick. Plus, the Tavondre Sweat pick, the red flags, the player himself. What does Trevor make of that? We'll do that coming up next. His reaction to the Titans draft. First, let's talk about the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Fellas, you've put this off for way too long, and it's time to get it done and move forward with your sex life. And the Tennessee Men's Clinic is the leader in bedroom confidence. The reality is pills often quit working and guys start making excuses for not coming to bed. Did you know that studies show that men will be more irritable and argumentative before bed just to avoid failing at intimacy? And yes, I know, men hate going to the doctor, but the Tennessee Men's Clinic was created in 2014 to take care of guys just like you. For a decade, the urologists and providers at the Tennessee Men's Clinic have helped guys with ED and weight loss, and they now even offer aesthetic enhancements and cosmetic procedures. Their ED and weight loss treatments truly change lives with no surgery, and they are seeing success rates as high as 90%. They specialize in seeing guys who think they're out of luck regain hope that they can be successful in the bedroom and beyond. And they even offer same or next day appointments. It's time to feel amazing and hit your goals this year. Stop thinking about it and do it. Get in there with the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Call 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090, or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com to book an appointment today. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. The draft is now officially behind us, and there's nobody I'd rather talk about it with than ESPN's Trevor Matich, who is presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics and ESPN Bet Sportsbook, Houston Clinic Orthopedics. And then, when you heard they were going to try him at left tackle, you, because of your belief in Bill Callahan, you think that it may work. Let me ask you this. Now that we've had some days to digest this, how exactly do you feel about the Latham pick and his ability to move to left tackle? Oh, Trevor's muted. Trev, unmute yourself. That's all you got to do. And he's still muted. Oh, and I set the question up so good, too. Oh, man. Well, I was wondering if you... There you go. Trevor?
Okay, I think I'm back.
Go for it. Your thoughts on the Latham move?
I thought that tackle nimble. The question is, can he develop the techniques over there, the angles, the things he needs to do that are completely opposite from right tackle? He's got the physical ability to do it. Now he has to be able to show that he can actually get it done to execute the techniques. At right tackle, he was a devastating run blocker for Alabama. But as a pass blocker, his technique left a lot to be desired. But the good news is his biggest problem over there was that he would overset too much. In other words, he would set too far and give up the inside. And so it's a lot easier to take a guy and have him set a little bit less than it is to take a slow guy and try to get him back out there to cut off the corner. Well, he showed he can get out there and a little bit too far at right tackle. So that tells me that he's got the speed, the footwork, the nimbleness to be able to get it done, but he just needs to, work on it at left tackle. Now, it is a risk because we don't know if he's going to be able to actually do that. Left tackle is a completely different animal from right tackle. However, he's played on the left in high school. He's practiced on the left to a degree. And it's, to me, not just Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach for the Titans, that can get him coached up. But I think he has the physical traits that you need to succeed there. It's just that he's not ready to step in right now at that position. He will need some work.
Trevor, my theory is I would put J.C. Latham at right tackle this year. I'd sign Andrus Peat to a one-year contract, stick him at left tackle. And then next year, I would move J.C. Latham to left tackle because he will already, know how to be a pro, know what it takes in the NFL, know what edge rushers in the NFL look like, that kind of thing. So it'll be easier for me to not teach him how to play in the NFL, but teach him technique next year and have the whole offseason to do it. And I just think that the lack of practice time, lack of preseason reps, everything else could be a humongous problem. And not just his own development, but also his development, the team's entire offensive line development. Because if they get out to training camp and he can't play left tackle, now it sets everybody back. And yet it doesn't seem like the Titans want to do that. Do you think that my approach is the better approach?
I do. When they first drafted him, I thought, okay, the best pure left tackle on the board, Joe Alt, is not available. The Chargers took him at number 5. So they took the best right tackle on the board and probably the best tackle on either side remaining, a natural right tackle. And I thought they could keep him there on the right side and then figure out what to do on the left side. Usually you're better off putting a guy at his best natural position and letting him develop. And if that leaves a hole somewhere else, figure out what to do with that hole. Instead of putting a guy at a position that's not a natural position, have him struggle to succeed there, and then have him begin his development at his natural position at some point down the road. That's why I think they did the right thing with Peter Skoronski, even though they needed a left tackle, by putting him right away at left guard and letting him develop there because that's the place they want him to be. So I thought that Latham would be plugged in at right tackle, let that be a problem solved, and then worry about the rest of the stuff. But they believe that because of his nimbleness, his footwork, his kind of unicorn ability to move the way he does for a guy his size, that he'll be able to make the switch and be a starter in year 1 on the left side. Now, that's a risk, but as I watch him move, as I watch him mirror, in other words, when he takes pass rushers on the right side at Alabama that are 100 pounds lighter than he is, 100 pounds lighter than he is. And they try to move him into space by starting outside. And then when he's moving that big body outside, the smaller, lighter pass rusher explodes to the inside, figuring that he'll be able to change direction faster and he'll be able to run faster to get to the inside gap. You find a lot of the time this guy, J.C. Latham, is able to change direction and slide inside and make the block anyway, as long as he doesn't overset. So those traits, I think, will, they give him a good chance to be successful at left tackle, but it's much more of a risk to move him over there right off the bat than it would be just to leave him on the right.
Trevor Matich is with us on the program. Trevor, what do you make of the rest of the offensive line? This idea that, okay, if Latham doesn't work, we can move him back to right tackle, and then what that does for his confidence. Because I'm saying basically put yourself in the position of the GM or the coach here. If you try him at left tackle and it doesn't work and he has to move back to right tackle, that's going to look like a failure. And if he goes out to left tackle and he's learning the technique and he's getting beat at practice and training camp every day by Arden Key or Harold Landry, that's going to make everybody sour on him very quickly. And I worry about that for his confidence. I worry about that for the confidence in the organization. And then I worry about what are they going to do at the other tackle spot. I mean, can they just move tackles in and around and, you were spent all offseason learning right tackle, Nicholas Petit-Frere, but now we're moving you to left tackle because the other guy can't play the spot. It seems too risky to me. It seems too messy to me. What do you think?
It can be, because you're right about the dominoes that could fall. If he's got to move from left tackle to right, that means they will have given him time to show that they don't trust him at left tackle, at least in the beginning. Well, the people playing right tackle now are either going to move into a backup position, kick down to guard, or switch over to the left, while Latham would then move over to the right. And so it delays everybody's development. And so you're right about that, Jared, that it is a risk. Now, the reward, though, is that if he picks it up quickly, if he picks it up naturally, then, and if he continues to grow and progress once he kind of gets the basics down, then they have their starting left tackle for the next decade, which is what everybody wanted with Joe Alt out of Notre Dame, who wasn't available when they picked at number 7. The idea was, okay, we want a pillar at that position that we never have to worry about for the next decade. And so the reward for Latham is that if it does work out there, they've got that guy anyway. And in some ways, Latham is actually a better athlete than Joe Alt is. Joe Alt is a precise technician, but Latham has more upside than Alt from a standpoint of just crushing people. And so, yeah, it's more risky to do it this way and take the risk that he can make it at left tackle. But if it works out, then they're going to be golden.
Trevor Matich is with us. What did you think of the Tavondre Sweat pick at 38?
This is all about the interview process and the background check process, because Sweat on the field at Texas was an absolute monster. It's not that he was so quick off the ball like Byron Murphy, his teammate at defensive tackle at Texas, was. He kind of get it off the ball, but then at 370 pounds or so plus that he played at Texas, he lost weight in the pre-draft process. It's about 360 now. But he would always require 2 offensive linemen to block him, because if they didn't get 2 guys, he would just mash whoever he was blocking right back into the face of the quarterback. And he can do that in this league as well. He's just that big and that powerful. In addition to that, from a run standpoint, one guy isn't going to block him. Sorry, not even in the NFL. You're going to have to double team him and stay on him longer than you normally would on a typical double team, where 2 offensive linemen will double team the defensive tackle briefly, and then one of them will come off on the linebacker. Well, briefly doesn't exist with this guy. You've got to stay on him longer. That means that he will eat up multiple blockers for a longer period of time and allow the linebackers of the Titans to run free and slash into holes in ways they wouldn't be able to with a normal human being in front of them playing defensive tackle. So these are all things that he can do on the field that are incredible if he does 2 things. One is takes care of his body and is, even loses some weight from 360 or so. because as big as he was at Texas, he's not going to be able to play that big in the NFL, because in the NFL, they will game plan to make him run and wear him out. The second thing is off the field, there's some question marks for him, and he'll need to prove that he straightens all the way up and doesn't have a problem mentally with discipline. As long as he can show those two things, this guy is going to be a force multiplier, because he will stuff the run and he will push the middle of the pocket into the quarterback's face, which will make the edge rushers more effective, because the quarterback won't be able to step up into a pocket that's occupied now by Sweat pushing two offensive linemen back into his face. So the potential reward here is enormous if he can have some discipline.
Is there any scuttlebutt that you heard about him off the field? Because we know about the DWI, we know about the weight, and I do think this: if the guy got to 380 at Texas, it's really hard for me to envision him being 350 in the NFL. But there's a lot of talk about, the draft people saying that there's a lot of people in the league saying there are maturity questions there. And the Titans seem to love skipping over red flags, whether it's L'Jarius Sneed's knees, Calvin Ridley's suspension, Julio Jones, Caleb Farley. They seem to love just, it'll be fine, and then dealing with the consequences. In your college football circles, have you heard any scuttlebutt about T'Vondre Sweat?
Not to that degree. It's just what you saw, which was he didn't maximize the physical body that he had as a tool on the football field, because he carried around just too much adipose. He just carried around too much weight. Imagine if he loses 50 pounds off of there and he gets down from 380 to 330. Imagine not having
we don't want him skinny,
pounds
Trevor.
of sandbags on him, but that'll make him more explosive. It'll make him more quick with his first step. And so, my guess is he'll play around 350 or so. They'll have to sub him out a fair amount. But I didn't hear anything to your question, Jared, that would tell me that he would be a real problem. It's just that you would look at him and say, okay, you're going to have to be better in the NFL at that. The thing about the NFL, though, is that, the guys will hire chefs to come in and cook every meal for them, prepare every meal. Here it is. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. And as long as they don't sneak on out to Chipotle, then good things can happen for them. So right now, other than the DUI, I haven't seen, and that could be just a one-time thing. I don't know. I haven't seen anything that gives me huge red flags beyond just the discipline of his body.
Trevor Matich is with us, presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook and Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. What about the day 3 picks, the linebacker, the corner, the receiver, etc.? We'll get Trevor's thoughts on that. And what does he think of the draft class as a whole? That's up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
With the 106th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Cedric Gray,
I like him.
linebacker, UNC.
So they didn't get to the 1K, but they got a pretty darn good player.
Yeah, he's the best linebacker available. I thought he would be gone last round. I'm a little surprised he's still sticking around. Excellent cover ability. He's an outstanding blitzer. And as you'll see here, the eyes work well as well. The change of direction, able to read and react and make a play in space. The coverage ability that I discussed. Look, if you can't cover at linebacker right now, you cannot get on the field or stay on the field the way the game is played. The instincts, here he is again. We have to show the App State, really, guys?
Yes, that's cold.
Put that one up. Thanks, Ben. Then you see him again here as a blitzer. CD, I mentioned that reference there, what he can do. Athletic linebacker. I like this move a lot.
And how about a little bit of a legacy move? You remember the guy they had before that came from Zach Brown, came from the University of North Carolina, a run, chase, hit linebacker. Cedric Gray could be the next one.
This is also a guy who has led the team in tackles for 3 years, but I would add special teams demon. He'll play right away on special teams too. They'll love that.
There you go. That was the pick. Cedric Gray in the 4th round. Trevor Matich with us, presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook and Houston Clinic Orthopedics. When experience matters. Trevor, let's start there. Pick 106. I am nervous to say Cedric Gray out of North Carolina should be the green dot inside backer for the Titans because I think that's a lot of pressure to put on a day 3 draft choice. But what do you think of the pick, and what do you think of his ability to get on the field right away?
He will get on the field right away in special teams because he is phenomenal at special teams. His body and his speed, that combination, his aggression, I think are tailor-made for the kicking game. And really, this starts a run of players, and we'll talk about this here, Jared, starts a run of players that may have question marks as to whether or not they can get on the field as regular position starters, but that all can make the team because of their speed and their size and their special teams prowess. And so, I mean, this is the first of many that will make this team better top to bottom. As far as a starter is concerned, he is a sideline to sideline guy. When he reads the hole and hits it, he hits it fast, and he can beat the offensive lineman to the mesh point and be disruptive. The problem is he doesn't have a whole lot of play strength, and if he doesn't read it and hit it fast and has to deal with the blocker, then the advantage goes to the offense. So they'd be best putting him in an off-ball position and let him read, react, and fly to the football. This is where a guy like a Tavondre Sweat, playing defensive tackle at 360-some pounds, is actually good, and it's a good combination because then you've got 2 offensive linemen eaten up, and Cedric Gray, who's a smaller linebacker that doesn't have tremendous strength, can run off of that, run free, and get into the gaps.
Trevor, what did you think about Jarvis Brownlee, the corner out of Louisville? I talked to the athletic director the morning before he was drafted, and he said he's a good kid. And then when they drafted him, he said that if he's healthy, that he'll be a good player for the Titans. What do you think of him?
I like him. I liked the pick, especially where they took him, because he's a guy that is if he wants to be a special teams terror, he will be. I mean, at 5'10", 194 pounds, he's not tall, but he's not small, and he can run. And the thing is, when you watch him play defense, he is hyper aggressive. He's at his best when he's at the line of scrimmage in press coverage, where he gets 2 hands on a receiver and just beats the stuffing out of that receiver at the line, doesn't let him get off into his route. He's great at that. And then he's great as the route starts to develop short and intermediate. The problem is that as that route then starts to develop farther down the field, he starts to get kind of loose, where he kind of loses the receiver a little bit. He loses track of the ball as it's coming down, things like that. So teams will try to get deep on him, and the Titans defense will have to make sure they give him some help over the top, or at least play him in positions where he's not going to be exposed deep. But from a standpoint of press coverage and disrupting plays before they get started, fantastic. And from a standpoint of special teams, another guy who makes them faster and more athletic there.
What do you think of the rest of the day 3 picks?
You know what? I thought the rest of the day 3 picks were kind of like that. You got guys that are fast and that can contribute that way. I mean, Jaquan Jackson, wide receiver out of Tulane. He's 5'9", 188. He's not a real big guy, but he's very shifty. He's a punt returner kind of guy. He's got good straight line speed. And once again, he gives them the ability to outrun people farther down the depth chart on the other side. He's not going to be beating number 1 or number 2 corners in the NFL, but he'll be going against number 3 and number 4 corners in the NFL. So these are the kinds of things that really help. I think James Williams, with the next pick out of Miami, he's a safety, and he is to me intriguing. He's 6'4", 231. He's got good speed, but he's basically a linebacker who
they're
Miami
moving him
had
to
playing.
linebacker.
It's good. They should move him to linebacker because teams will do this all the time where they'll take a slow corner, make him a fast safety. A slow safety becomes a fast linebacker. A slow linebacker becomes a fast defensive end. That kind of a thing. So by putting him up near the line, you're maximizing two things. One is he's got good size and good length, but the other is he's best at man coverage against big guys. So tight ends. If you want to match up against a big tight end, this is your guy, and he should be able to get on the field as a rookie doing that.
Trevor, how much better do you think the Titans are today than they were on Wednesday of last week?
I think they're a lot better. I think they're dramatically better because they've got a left tackle probably. Certainly they've got a right tackle with J.C. Latham, but I think he's going to be fine at left. The more I think about it, the more I think he'll be okay. The big question is how long it will take him to get to that point, and then he'll get to where he's much, much, much more than okay. I love that. I like the Tavondre Sweat pick with the second round pick because he's a force multiplier. He'll make the edge rushers better. He'll make the inside linebackers better because he'll keep them clean. Then everybody else, a whole bunch of guys that can run and hit. And you can use guys like that. And a lot of times people will kind of downplay the importance of upgrading your speed and athleticism on special teams. Yeah, well, it's special teams. We need a starting this or that. Well, yeah, you do need a starting this or that. But when you're talking about a 5th round and a 6th round and a 7th round pick, are these guys going to be your starters there? Maybe, not likely. But if they can make the team and make your special teams better, you can develop them and see if you can turn them into a starter or at least a rotational player on offense or on defense. And they've done that with the later round picks. A lot of people don't like the Titans draft top to bottom. There are risks involved. But I'll tell you what, if the top 2 picks pan out, if J.C. Latham is able to move over to the left side and be a pillar there, and if Sweat loses some weight and stays focused and disciplined, then everybody else in this draft is going to be a contributor that they keep on this team. And the top 2 are going to be ginormous upgrades. So it's risky. We don't know how it's going to work out yet, but sitting at it, looking at it from this vantage point, the potential and the likelihood of reaching that potential, I think is very encouraging.
Trevor Matich, presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook and Houston Clinic Orthopedics. Trevor, great stuff as always. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, Trevor joining us on the program as always. Barry Trotz joins us next. The Predators are in a 3-1 hole. How do they get themselves out of it? We will ask the man himself, Barry Trotz, and we'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios. Predators playoff coverage starts at the top of the hour. Max live from Vancouver, and the puck drop tonight at 9 o'clock. And the Predators have dug themselves the 3-1 hole. But as we saw, as far as the game was concerned Sunday, 3-1 can get turned on its head very quickly. And so we shall see tonight as they go back to Vancouver and try to force a Game 6 at Bridgestone Arena. Barry Trotz joins us on the program now, Predators general manager. So, Barry, let's start right there. How does this team dig itself out tonight after the devastation on Sunday to force a Game 6 to get it back here in Nashville?
Well, you've got to just focus on the moment. I keep saying that in the playoffs. You can't look back. We can't get that game back. That game takes a piece of your soul. So you've got to, you can feel sorry for yourself and play a soft type of game, or you can get mad as hell, as we say, and make sure that you get back to Bridgestone, because I think if we get back to Bridgestone, we're going to be back here for Game 7. So I think that's hopefully the mentality. But I always say I've been in on both sides of this equation in my career, and it's a little bit like a video game. You start out with good energy, and if you get punched in the mouth early and fall behind, that energy sort of just dwindles as it goes on. But if you can jump on top and get something going, that energy builds. So getting the first goal will be really meaningful tonight for us. I think it'll ease a few some of the mental anxieties. And I liked our game. For 58 minutes, we love our game. I give credit to Vancouver. They found ways to win games. You look at Game 1, we played a really good game, could have won that game, but there was a span of about 30 seconds. They got back-to-back goals. You look at Game 3, we dominated the game. They won on their special teams. Their skill really comes out, obviously, when they have man advantage, be it 5-on-6 or 6-on-5 or 5-on-4. And then last game they got 2 goals late with the goalie pulled, and we had a chance. It's a fine line. Colton Sissons puts the puck in the net instead of hitting the post. The best I think Vancouver does that game is a 4-2 win for us. So that's how fine line and how things can change. And you said it on the start of your show. We'll need something good to happen for us, and we've got to make it happen. And if we do, then I think we can get it rolling our way.
Barry, I do wonder when it comes to the NHL playoffs. I've always said that every game is independent of the next game. And I've learned that over the years. I really used to think, momentum here and moment. And I just feel like in the NHL playoffs, maybe it's the day off in between games, but it feels like in my experience, what's happened in the past does not matter going forward. Yet at the same time, Sunday was such a tough loss. There's a part of me that wonders, is there a possibility that lingers either positively or negatively? Either the team is so fired up to right the wrong from Sunday, or they're so devastated by what happened Sunday, or does it really have no effect going into 9 o'clock tonight?
I don't think it has a major effect, but I think it's a little bit on an individual basis. I think everybody is made up differently. There's guys that can have tragedy and devastation in their life and turn around the next day and move forward, and other people it lingers. So I think it's a little bit on individuals, but I do think that most professional athletes, they try to respond. The good ones respond all the time, and hopefully that game doesn't take too big of a piece out of our soul, and we put it back together quick enough to go right back at the Canucks and bring it back to Nashville.
Barry, I said to you in St. Louis after the 9-2 loss to Dallas, I said this team's about to go on a heater because they were so embarrassed that Thursday night against the Stars, and the team played like it going forward. Is there a feeling similar to that going into tonight about really the disappointment but moving past it with the backs against the wall, the way it felt like the backs were against the wall going into that St. Louis game?
Yeah, I think that it's very similar in some ways. Obviously, the runway is a lot longer when we were in St. Louis than it is for us, tonight, if we don't respond, our season ends. So I would think that you're going to get your best effort early, and hopefully we get a couple pucks bouncing our way. It's going to be a crazy building. The Canucks fan base has been really strong, and they're excited. And it's been a tough building to come in and win hockey games. But at the same time, we're going to have to do that, or we'll be packing our bags in a few days. So I think you're going to get our best effort, and I trust this group has responded all year. I have to trust that it will once again.
Barry Trotz is with us on the program. UC Saros has a goals above expected in this series of 3.1, which is not very good, especially considering how close this series has been. Now, I don't know how they calculate that. You would probably know that better than I would, and I don't know how seriously you take that. But I do wonder when it comes to the goalie, there is a big decision that may be coming up on this. How much are you weighing this, and how much do you look at this series and think that there's more there for Saros to give?
Well, I think I can't fault the juice on too many of the goals that have gone in. I mean, some of those plays, especially the two at the end of last game. At the end of there's not a goalie in on the planet would have saved those. But going into the series, especially when Demko went down, I thought, okay, there's a big advantage in goal for us. But it just hasn't. They haven't had a lot of shots, so. That hurts the save percentage and expected goals a little bit. So, but I was hoping it would be a bigger value there in difference because they are using their backup goalie and even a third goalie, and we haven't been able to win that war. But we don't get to the playoffs without UC Saros. So I will, you weigh everything, but for the most part, you got to weigh the 82 games body of work.
Last night, Barry, or I should say Sunday night, when the game went to overtime, I was as devastated as anybody else was. But I kind of told myself, I said, okay, none of this matters if you guys go out and score a goal in overtime and even it up at 2-2. And I'm thinking to myself, this is where, the star players go out and make star plays. And instead, kind of the opposite happened, right? Forsberg and O'Reilly end up, I guess it was a miscommunication, whatever it may be, in the D zone, which led to the goal that Vancouver scored to win the game. I do wonder when it comes to the star players of this team. I know Forsberg had a goal the other night, but how much is it kind of say, hey, there's got to be another gear with Josi and Forsberg, and even though Vancouver's game plan is to take those guys out, how much is there more for them to give for this team to get into this next level in this series?
Well, I think you go through all these things in your career as players, especially top players. A lot of times the top players cancel each other out just because you're facing the best matchups. You're getting checked really close. People are leaning on you. I say in the regular season, the high-skilled players, they're not getting cross-checked and punched every shift, and life's a little easier in the regular season. It comes to playoffs, there's a little more prison rules, as we would say, in the hockey world, where you're going to get punched and you're going to get cross-checked, you're going to get a face wash, and you've got to fight through that, and you got to find a next level. I think the one player on Vancouver's side who's got a lot of playoff experience and has gone deep with the New York Rangers and also with Tampa is Miller. I think he's really stepped up his game and he's pulled him into the fight. And then there's some players on the other side that in Vancouver they say they need more from them. So with us, our star players have been good all year, but we got to find another level. I mean, Jost's got to find another level that he maybe hasn't had maybe in the playoffs for a few years, and I know Forsberg can, and I think Forsberg could be he's the one guy because he is a genetic freak when it comes to size and strength and skill level, that he could actually take this game over if he has because he's a guy that can get into the interior, and he could be the real difference maker. So I'm hoping Philip can really step up big and then pull us, through this rest of the series, because he's a guy that can do that, and he's been terrific all year. But I just think it's his time, and he's our best forward. So I'm hoping he has a big night.
Barry, what's got to happen on the Tommy Novak front? He is a very skilled offensive player. Defensively, sometimes has issues in his own end, but the ice time's been decreasing in this series, and I feel like maybe this series might be a little too heavy for him. How much of it is a challenge to the player of, hey, you got to rise to the occasion in this kind of series, and how much of it is he's just not a great matchup against Vancouver?
Well, I think they're a little bit of combination. I mean, Tommy's got a great skill set. He's got a good offensive mind, and their whole line has to get into the interior. And I think we could look at that whole line. It hasn't really produced a whole lot. Jankowski got a tip-in goal. I don't even know if he was on that line. Novak hasn't produced a point, and then Evangelist, I think he got his point at the end of the game the other night in the 2-1 loss in Game 3. All that being said, that's a line that hasn't had a lot of playoff experience, and they're getting baptized against a very good Vancouver team. Tommy Novak and a lot of the line matching is up against Elias Pettersson, who's probably going to be a $8 or $9 million free agent. I mean, he's considered a top line center. So the matchup sometimes the team that you play and then your first experience in the playoffs is sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming. But I thought last game, Tommy was starting to dance a little bit. So hopefully he's getting comfortable with this series.
Barry, is there anything in your experience as a coach that you share with Andrew Burnett ahead of tonight's game, with your experience, 3-1s, being down, being up, whatever it may be, that if you were coaching that you would hearken back to, or that this reminds you of your own experiences to kind of maybe be encouraging or to give hope?
No, I think the biggest thing is being encouraging. I mean, when you get your backs against the wall, if you look at any situation you've been in your own life where it's been a real tough situation, and somehow, some way you come out of it on the positive end, it is something that's that you don't forget, and something that you really, really cling to for the rest of your life. So, we got our backs against the wall. What a great opportunity is to make some history. I mean, everybody, there's not a person in Vancouver other than our own team and maybe some of our fans and ownership that believe that we can't come back. So, it's us against the world, which can have a great bonding effect. But, I'm a firm believer that you stay in the moment. If you get tonight's game and you stay in the moment and you take it back to Bridgestone, and I'll tell you what, the pressure starts to mount against Vancouver, because they don't want to come back 3,000 miles back to Nashville and then coming back here possibly for a Game 7. There's a lot of pressure on them if we can get tonight. So, the pressure's on us tonight to stay alive, and the pressure can switch to them very quickly with a win tonight.
Barry, I was thinking about something you said a couple of weeks ago. Barry Trotz is with us on the program about, the fans and the anxiety and the building and the players and everything else. And about, I wondered, when it comes to, hey, don't get on the players if things don't go well in the playoffs, when, certain plays, because they're going to try to make a certain play here or there. I have never questioned this team's effort. Now, I'm not questioning it now. I mean, I was not in that room after the game. I can guarantee you that every single one of you was devastated on Sunday night, because I've been around this team enough. I've been around these players, and I just know what this group's made of. But I do wonder if in both Game 1 and in Game 4, maybe they were gripping the sticks a little too tight. And maybe this team, maybe they're better off if they play, quote-unquote, looser. Is that a feeling that maybe you share or that you see from the guys? Like, what is kind of the emotional state of this team that gives them the best chance to win?
Well, I think when they're bonded together, when they came together because of the Vegas trip cancellation, they bonded together. Tonight, they're bonding together to save the season. So, if they do that and have a real good road victory, that can set you off in the right spot. But I do think when they hit the post and they came back and scored 6-on-5, I could feel the anxiety in the building, and I think one of the things that happens that all those emotions can be felt all the time, and it's just natural. It's human nature. And one of the things I really truly believe, and you always hear me talk about, sometimes you've got to go through it to understand what the sport is, and the sport is, we were 2 minutes away from joy and happiness, and it just came crashing down in 2 minutes, and that's what sport is. It is the most beautiful game, and then you turn the corner and it's one of the ugliest games because it can rip your heart out and take a piece of your soul, and that's what it does to the players. It's what it does to passionate fans too, and we all felt it. So what we need to do is be positive, push forward, see if we can get a win tonight. I like this team has not. I can't say in this series we've been outworked. I can't say that we've been out hit. I can't say anything. 5-on-5, I like our game. They've taken advantage for the most part to Vancouver with the man advantage, be it the power play and the 6-on-5, because that's where that high skill that they have that we're trying to get through the draft and also through free agency that can make a difference in those moments, and it has. And you see on the power play how dangerous they are. Our power play is not produced, and our penalty kill has done a good job. But in some of the key moments, the 6-on-5 is really not penalty kill. But we panicked a little bit because one guy goes down. I think it was Gus went to the point. People don't understand when there's say 10 seconds in the game, and you can feel the emotion. You don't know how much time. Those 10 seconds feel like 10 minutes when when teams have the pressure. So I didn't think we didn't get it done, so we didn't respond the way I would like to have seen us respond. But at the same time, those are hard lessons that you have to learn. I think we'll be better prepared for it. I think there's always growth when you have to go through hard times, and tonight is a hard time. We've got to get through it, get us back to Nashville, and then get through there, and then get it back to Game 7, and then, all bets are off. We can get to Game 7.
Barry Trotz on our program every week. Barry, not only do I expect to see you Friday night, but I hope to be talking to you next Tuesday as well. Good luck tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yep, Barry Trotz from Vancouver, Predators tonight, 9 o'clock. And again, I think, he said it right there. There were a handful of things he said that and Ian, you can back me up on this because you've got the grid in front of you. I think if the Predators are going to win tonight, that they're going to need to do 4 things. And it sounds to me like Barry touched on all 4 of those in our conversation we just had.
Sounds like it.
I want to get to that
for the most
next.
part. Maybe the goalie one we'll see, but
we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let's talk about Window Nation. That's right. Window Nation, they are the best. April is here, and if your windows will not open for fresh air or seal tight to keep out pollen, bugs, or what have you, talk to Window Nation. Because right now, for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 windows free. There is no limit on how much you could save. Plus, save even more with no interest or payments for 24 months. Again, for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 windows free and no interest or payments for 24 months. With proven quality, you'll get affordable windows that meet or beat the national brands. So do not miss out. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com to schedule your free in-home estimate. That's 866-90NATION, windownation.com.
You talked about the opportunity to win one game tonight. From your experience in this scenario in the past and applying it to this one, does that have to be the mentality, one game at a time? Don't look at the overall task at hand?
Yeah, it's kind of like Pete Weber told me today, you can't hit a grand slam with nobody on, right? So that was a pretty good line. For sure, you got to win one. Everything changes. It's amazing this time of year and in our sport. How momentum changes quickly, changes in the game like it did the other game. And it changes in series, and it happens fast. Sometimes you don't see it coming, kind of like we didn't. And you win one game, and everything changes.
Andrew Burnett, that's the message. Don't let them win tonight. That's what Barry Trotz was saying. Don't let them win tonight. Because as Barry Trotz said on the show, they win tonight. Barry's convinced they're winning Game 6 here on Friday, and then Vancouver don't want to go to Game 7. And I get behind that. Now, again, I am skeptical that they're going to be able to pull this off. But if they are, it really is, and you know me, I don't do the bull crap, and cliches for the most part, I think are usually rooted in bull crap. But it absolutely is a one game at a time kind of thing. And the Predators have won 3 games in a row before. And Vancouver, I assume, is going to be playing the AHL goalie again. And right now, with Vancouver, I think they were excited to make it into the playoffs and whatnot. Okay, we'll make it into the playoffs and we'll go from there. And, that we made it in. Yes, that's great. Let's see how far we go. But now they expect to win, which means if you win Game 5, pressure's on them for Game 6. Barry's right about that. So if the Predators are going to win tonight, here's what has to happen. Number 1, they must get on the board first. They did not get on the board first in Game 3. They did not get on the board first in Game 4. They need to play with the lead. And I know that they had the lead in Game 4 and it still didn't matter. But, they really have got to get on the board first, because if they don't and Vancouver scores, it would not surprise me to see a bunch of white helmets just drop. And if that happens, you're toast. So you've got to get on the board first. That's the first thing. Number 2, they got to stay out of the box. Barry said it. He goes, their talent shines through when they are at a man advantage. When they can put all their best players on the ice at one time. Pettersson, Besser, Miller, Hughes, and I think Lindholm's probably the other guy that's of their best players. But when they can put their best players on the ice all at the same time, you can't beat them. Like, they are too good. And I want to say, a couple years ago, the Predators played this team, and they got a major, and Vancouver rolled off like 3 goals on the power play. You cannot get in the box. And I go back to that Michael McCarron penalty in Game 3. See, people will look back at moments of this series and say the things that anger them are, Colton Sissons hitting the post. And I don't necessarily feel that way. Of course you win the game if Colton Sissons puts the puck in the net. But it's not like Colton Sissons is trying to hit the post there. It happens. It sucks. It happens. And you got to do better. But that doesn't make me angry. What makes me angry is the dumb stuff. And McCarron rolling right in like a blitzing linebacker into Casey DeSmith that draws an interference penalty, sends you to the box and puts them up 1-0 is the stupid crap that hurts the team. You do that tonight, you lose. There's no way around it. So they have got to stay out of the box. 3, they got to get something out of Roman Josi tonight. And Barry was talking about it with Josi and Forsberg, saying there's more there. And that Forsberg has the ability and the talent to be able to take over a game, and he wants it. And when it comes to Josi, where the hell's he been at this series? And I know Pettersson hasn't done much for them, and Hughes really hasn't done much for them, and they have been beating the crap out of Quinn Hughes in this series. I wonder if Quinn Hughes physically is going to be able to go through a playoff run, because he's a little dude out there, Ian.
Yeah, he is. He's not necessarily built for the playoffs either.
He's a little dude. And I was watching them just beat the crap out of him.
And I can't remember who the other player was, but he went back to the bench, and he was holding his stomach like he was looking behind him, and then Zucker came and got him like right in the chest.
I think it was Carrier. And when they got him, it was right in front of me. And I watched him go back to the bench, and it was like, yo, you need some help, bro? Like,
yeah, he was hurting there for a minute, but he came back.
So, again, like, where's Yossi been? Like, where's he been? He needs to make a presence in tonight's game and in this series. So, again, he makes the most money. He's the captain. I don't ever question his effort. I don't ever question his heart. I don't ever question whether his head's in the right place. But I do need production, and it's got to happen tonight. And then finally, I think Saros has to give you a performance worthy of a steal. And, Barry kind of talked about it there, saying, hey, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Saros, and I'm not going to put this on Saros. But you did hear what Barry said in there, where he said when their goalie went out, I thought that was going to be a big advantage for us. Translation, it hasn't been, and that's disappointing. 3.1 goals above expected in this series. Inexcusable, especially in a series where you've lost 3 games basically by a goal. Game 1, you technically lost by 2, but you really lost by 1 because it was an empty netter. Game 3, you lost by 1. And game 4, you lost by 1. And so if he's allowed 3 goals over expected, that just cost you the series. So if you're going to get back in it, I'll tell you right now, if you're going to win this series, he's going to have to steal one of these 3 games. He might have to steal 2. And if you want $8 million a year, you're going to have to win in the playoffs. So to me, when I'm looking at what has to happen tonight for the Predators to win, I'm looking at you better get on the board first. You better stay out of the box. You better get something out of Yossi, and Saros has to probably give you a steal. And it would be nice if you score 4 goals in the first 2 periods and you win the game 4-0. It would be nice. And then Saros doesn't have to steal it, but he needs to get out. Like, he needs to enter the ice tonight thinking, I have to steal this game for my team. And then he has to do it. Like these great players, like Derek Jeter walks up to bat knowing I've got to get a hit right here to win this for my team. And then Jeter always does. That's what Saros has to do tonight. Now, are all those things I just listed going to happen? I doubt it. But the Predators have won 3 games in a row before. The NHL, every game is independent of the game before it. And most importantly, I think Barry Trotz is right. Where Vancouver is right now at 3-1, they believe they're going to win this series. I believe they're going to win this series. You win this game and get it back to Bridgestone Arena, now the idea of them blowing this series becomes a discussion. And the other thing, and I didn't add it to the list, whatever Applebee's waiter is their goalie this game, you better get to him because they haven't done a good enough job against these bum goalies. And that's got to change. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We are to your phones. If you've got a Preds thought, get it in. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on the program, here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I do wonder when it comes to the goalie, there is a big decision that may be coming up on this. How much are you weighing this, and how much do you look at this series and think that there's more there for Saros to give?
Well, I think I can't fault the juice on too many of the goals that have gone in. I mean, some of those plays, especially the two at the end of last game. At the end of there's not a goalie in on the planet would have saved those, but. Going into the series, especially when Demko went down, I thought, okay, there's a big advantage in goal for us, but it just hasn't. They haven't had a lot of shots, so that hurts the save percentage and expected goals a little bit. So, but I was hoping it would be a bigger value there in difference because they are using their backup goalie and even a third goalie, and we haven't been able to win that war, but. We don't get to the playoffs without UC Saros. So I will, you weigh everything, but for the most part, you got to weigh the 82 games body of work.
Okay, so I asked Barry Trotz, how much of this plays into that big decision? He got the question. He answered it. One texter into the text line went crazy, Ian, because of that question to Barry Trotz.
What do you mean?
Texter says, see, all favoritism, all softball questions, and not a single question about pulling Saros because he sucks, says the texter. If that was Rand Carthon, you would have attacked him like a velociraptor. This team is losing, and you are just yucking it up with the general manager. I mean, I just asked him. I just told him. I said, your goalie has a 3.1 goals above expectation. That's not good. What does this mean long term? That's the question. And let's not kid ourselves. My guess is that when the season is over, Barry Trotz, they always do their end of the year press conference. My guess is, we haven't asked for this, so maybe I'm overstepping my boundaries by assuming this, but I assume that Barry Trotz will come on the show after the season. I mean, I don't think that's too crazy to think, Ian, right?
I don't think that's too crazy to think.
So, and then when that happens, that's when we ask, wow, Saros was terrible in this series. What is that? That's when he's not going to sit there and say, Saros has sucked this series. He told you what he thinks when he was like, man, I really thought we were going to have a larger advantage in net this series. But, the only reason we're here is because of Saros. He told you. He doesn't think Saros is playing well enough. So I replied to the texter, and I said, please, I asked Barry if this affected the decision he has to make on Saros at the end of the year. He goes, barely even a softball. The right question should be, are you going to pull this bum or not? They're not going to pull him. They're going to lose with him as the goalie and then make a decision if they lose. He is going, you're going to win with him or you're going to lose with him. It's one or the other. And my favorite part is that the next guy, right after they both texted in at the same time, when that guy said softball questions for Trotz, the next guy texts in and says, thank you for a fantastic interview with Trotz, and thanks for asking a few of the tougher questions. So now I don't even know, was it a hard interview or not? Now I don't even know if I did a good job, because the two guys said the exact opposite thing. Not that I care that much, but it is what it is. One texter says, you keep talking about wanting to get to Bridgestone Arena because they've been so good at Bridgestone, and Quinn Hughes has been worth a point per game. See, I don't care about that kind of stuff, right? When it's, he has a point per game. Okay, so he got a secondary assist, right?
And, a lot of power play in 6-on-5.
He's running the point.
Mm-hmm, especially on the 6-on-5 there.
I mean, to me, I'm talking about feeling a dude in a series. And when it comes to defense, I have felt Nikita Zadorov way more than I felt Quinn Hughes in this series. I have felt JT Miller way more than I felt Elias Pettersson. I think I got that right?
What was that? I'm sorry?
Elias Pettersson?
Yes.
Elias Pettersson?
Yep.
It's not Elias.
I think you could get away with either.
Who knows?
But I think it's Elias.
Texture says, pull the goalie. They did it to Pekka in the playoffs when he had a bad game. That is the right thing to ask. Pull the goalie? I mean, they never didn't start Pekka Rinne in a playoff game until Saros had officially taken over in the Arizona bubble series, which, quite frankly, I thought was regrettable on their part. Like, I thought that it was regrettable that they didn't go to Saros, or that they didn't go to Rene in the Arizona bubble series when they didn't go to him after Saros had lost Game 3. I would have made the move just because desperate times call for desperate measures. Now, I did ask the question to Trotz about Tommy Novak because, again, today at morning skate, the lines were all the same. And I was wondering, I said before Game 4, I'm taking Tommy Novak out of the lineup because I just don't think he's heavy enough to play in this series. I mean, honestly, I'm concerned about signing him to an extension, though $3 million a year is really not a lot of money. But I'm concerned that Tommy Novak may not be, a bona fide, legitimate NHL player, and that this series may be exposing some of that. But I would have pulled him before Game 4. They keep decreasing his ice time. Now they're on the road at Vancouver. They don't control the matchups. So I'm starting to wonder in my head, they're going to pull him, right? And then they ended up with the same lines at morning skate. So now I'm like, is Andrew Burnett really running it back with the same group for the 5th straight game without a little tinker here or there? Look, sometimes I thought Laviolette broke up the lines too quickly. Sometimes I thought Hines, it's like taking a crowbar to get him to change the lines. But I just, really? Run Novak back out there when you don't want to play him to begin with? And you could, in theory, put Parsonen in there or do something, whatever. And so I asked Barry about Tommy Novak, and he was talking about what that line needs to do. So my gut is that Barry thinks, I think Barry, again, I wasn't asking him, is Novak going to be in there? But by his answer, I do think that Tommy Novak's getting the nod tonight.
Burnett said there's a potential one change. Maybe.
He said that before the last game, too, and then he didn't do it.
So that's what he said today. Potential one change.
That could be Fabro for Barry, though.
Hard to say, yeah. He obviously didn't specify, but...
Now, they hate Tyson Barrie as far as the play is concerned. At least that's my vibe. But Tyson Barrie can play on the power play. And Dante Fabro's, he's what he is. Texture says, how can Peter Laviolette pull the man that the Predators built a statue of in front of the arena in the middle of a playoff game, and we will not consider it here? It's crazy. Saros is spooked, and he needs to be out. He hasn't been good, but I don't think he's been bad enough to get the heave-ho. And plus, the way I kind of feel about sports is I want the answer. So when it comes to Saros, the draft is when they're going to have to decide whether or not to trade him. If they go into the season with him next year, you might as well extend him because you're not going to trade him at the deadline because if he's your goalie, you're going to be competing for a playoff spot. So this might be the last data point for UC Saros before the Predators, in my opinion, have to make the decision. So let's see if he can do it or not. My gut tells me he can't, but that's why we play the games. Jack says the Sissons defending is a little ridiculous. See, again, to me, there's a difference between being angry about something that somebody couldn't do or somebody didn't do and being mad about stupid stuff, right? It's like you can get mad at a guy for dropping a pass. I get it. But that you should be way more mad about a guy getting a 15-yard penalty because he can't control himself, and so he pushes a guy back and now move the ball 15 yards than you should be about a guy dropping a pass or missing a kick. That's what I'm saying. What Michael McCarron did in Game 3, I thought that could have sent him to the press box for that. So to me, there's just a difference between the two. One texter says Novak should be sad. I agree. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Predators game day is next ahead of our extended Game 5 coverage, which will be coming up. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Nashville Predators. Hiller has been taking care of my home for years, and I promise you they can do the exact same. Save and smile this month with Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, because from now until April 30th, you can take advantage of big savings on home systems. Enjoy up to $1,500 off select new HVAC systems, whole home water filtration and descalers, or select new whole home generators. If you've been waiting, now is the right time to upgrade your systems or replace them. Visit happyhiller.com today for details. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today. Predators game day tonight, 9 o'clock, Rogers Arena, right here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The Predators trail 3-1 in the best of seven, which means it is win or go home. Well, I guess it's win and go home to play game 6, or win and go home for forever. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not ready for this ride to end. I'm sorry. This has been too fun of a season. And I have said this on the front end that all I wanted was a exciting March and April and one competitive playoff series. And I, for the most part, have gotten that. But now I'm getting greedy. I want a game 6. We start with the coach's take. This was Andrew Burnett earlier today ahead of game number 5.
It's kind of like Pete Weber told me today, you can't hit a grand slam with nobody on, right? So that was a pretty good line. For sure, you got to win one. Everything changes. It's amazing this time of year and in our sport. How momentum changes quickly, changes in the game like it did the other game, and it changes in series. And it happens fast. Sometimes you don't see it coming, kind of like we didn't. And you win one game and everything changes.
Now, they win this one game. I don't think everything changes, but I do think then they can start to have some hope that they can pull this out. And that's what they really need. That's why I said they got to get on the board first. Philip Forsberg ahead of tonight's game number 5.
Yeah, there's no point of looking further than tonight. Obviously, we got a big task ahead of us tonight, and in a place that we've won before, so we're excited about it. Great opportunity for our team, and like I said, it's not like we can play whatever's next, and neither can them. So it's one of those games you just come out and try to leave it all out there.
Now it's crazy because again, these are the cliches they have one way or another, and then finally Roman Josi ahead of tonight's game number 5.
Well, I guess like you said, turning the page. I mean, I think we played some good hockey. I think even the last 2 games, I thought we played some really good hockey. Probably deserved a little bit better than what we got. But at the same time, this is a whole new game. They got a chance to end the series at home. So we need to step it up and play even better and have even a better game. But after a loss like that, it's easy to get caught up in that. But we got to stick to the process and keep continuing to get better and hopefully steal one here on the road.
There you go. So tonight we shall see. Lineup changes. We don't know who's in net for Vancouver, and Andrew Burnett says he may make a lineup change. I am going to make a prediction. I don't know why I think this. I think Predators going to win. Maybe that's the kiss of death. I don't know. But there's just some, I don't know. We shall see. Max has you covered. 2 hours of Preds Extra, 1 hour of pregame. Puck drop from Rogers Arena. We will see you all tomorrow. Full recap at 2 o'clock.